There we go. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide. And I upgraded to OBS 28, and I'm coming up with a couple of bugs with my Stream Deck, so apologies if some things aren't working, like the music. Let me get the music going here. We will get some stuff going here. I'll get all this stuff fixed up later on, but hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for hanging out tonight. So we're going to have a handful of resume reviews. If you want to get a resume review in, it's not too late. You can go check out the link over here. Go submit it. And we'll take a look at those as we go through the evening. And then if we got time afterwards, we're going to go through Discord and look for some anonymous questions. And if you've got questions, you're absolutely welcome to drop those in chat as we go. Hope everybody's doing good. My day's been pretty busy. It's been a pretty busy week. Gearing up for a trip in about a week. I'm going to be out in the Bay Area. If you're out in the San Francisco area and want to hang out, want to grab a coffee or grab a breakfast or something, or grab like a late night coffee or snack or drink or something like that, hit me up. Let me know. Hope everybody's doing good. Sorry for my voice. Let me turn my voice down here just a tiny bit. So we got a handful of resumes. I've got 5 that we're going to go through, and then we'll go through any questions that come in as well. And let's see, what else do we want to chat about? Nope, that's pretty much it. Someone on the stream wanted to go over a careers page. I forget if it was RC Maniac. They wanted to go over the careers page at their company. So we'll wait to see if RC Maniac drops by. If so, we'll definitely dive in on some of that. Otherwise, I realized last week I actually put the wrong total amount on the diversity and tech fundraiser. It was higher than it should have been. It was just a typo on my part, but it's been corrected. So this is the actual amount raised by the community, and then I'll match all of that. And so we're at a little over $400 so far. You can do ! money in chat. You can see a webpage on that and get all my disclosure information on how I make money as a streamer. Yeah, otherwise things are good. Yeah, like I said, it's been pretty busy at home. I actually did a real interview for work over the past week. That was fun, doing some real interviews again. I've been doing mock interviews for so long. I'm like, ooh, I get to do the real thing. And it was a lot of fun. It went really well. Yeah, let's see what else is going on today. Pretty much it. Did a little more work on the chatbot. I'm pretty sure that the clip tool is done. Seems to be finished and ready to go. Fingers crossed. We'll try it out tonight with the resume reviews. I'm going to try and use it to actually clip out the resume reviews. It'll just make that a little bit smoother and easier to parcel out after the stream today. And then we'll figure that out from there. And then over the next couple of weeks, I may take a look at this streamer bot thing that's been in development for a while. Let me show you what this thing is here. You go over to the screen here. So the streamer.bot is basically this application where you can go in and you can set all kinds of stuff, like, you know, if this happens in chat, or if this person follows, or if somebody follows or subs or uses channel points and things like that, then you can have it do all kinds of stuff, including like playing all the music and playing all the videos and stuff like that. So then you can have like chat commands. So instead of like ! hello, just giving a funny little saying, we can actually get the whole little hello there, like pop-up video that would normally come up if my Stream Deck was working. But it would be this guy.
Hello there.
Nope. All right, totally broken. I don't know if the audio actually played. No, I don't think the audio is playing either. But the video is completely off screen. So I've got a bunch of stuff that I need to go fix over the next couple of days. And let's see what else on. So there's my transparency. So this is how much I've made as a streamer. And then we've had some PayPal donations come in as well. So that's how that all adds up to that $200 range. And then for live streaming, we have Praveen, who's going to be on the stream on Sunday. I'll confirm with them tomorrow. Just make sure that they're still in line for Sunday. And I need to take this tentative off because Finite Singularity has confirmed that they're going to be part of the stream next Thursday, so I'm really looking forward to that. Let me go fix that real quick and take the tentative off of there. Looking forward to having a chat with Mark and hear about Mark's background and what Mark has been up to, and talk about streaming and talk about working in the tech industry and talk about being self-employed and freelancing and all that kind of stuff. He'll have some really, really good insights. So I'm looking forward to having a chat with Mark next week. But yeah, go give Finite Singularity a follow as well if you don't already follow his channel. He tends to stream earlier in the mornings, but very, very entertaining. He's got fantastic like OBS transitions and all kinds of cool backgrounds and stuff going on. He can code as his dog, and he's fantastic as far as like making all these cool overlays and stuff like that. So and then next Sunday we're gonna have Kieran McGee from academy.tech on the stream, and then I fly to San Francisco. So on the 22nd, I don't think I'm gonna stream. I'll be in San Francisco that whole week, and that Thursday night is like right before I fly back to Denver. And so I don't know if I'm going to stream that night or not. I might stream remotely. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, no plan to stream. So I probably won't be streaming. I'm going to commit to not stream. If I stream that night, it'll be a fun surprise. But right now, I'm not planning on streaming on the 22nd. And then I'll get the October dates filled in pretty soon, because we've got some guests all the way into October now. And we also have a couple of folks that I've wanted to get on the stream that just, timing wise, it didn't work out. Get Oliver, who's supposed to be on last week, and Till, who's supposed to be on a couple of weeks back, and Rohit, who ended up with a laptop problem. So I want to get all these folks on there, as well as Strager, who's been by the stream and rated in a couple of times, and want to make sure that I get all these folks on here, as well as CM Griffin has offered to be on the stream as well. So I got all kinds of folks that are lined up that want to come on the stream. It's just to find the time. So we'll make sure all that happens. But also towards the end of the month, I believe on the 29th. Let me double check. I think it's on the 29th. Zooey has offered to come on the stream and hear Zooey's journey into tech and stuff like that. So pretty excited to have Zooey come by and chat with us about what they've been up to, and hear their journey in tech and all that kind of stuff too. So be great to have one of our VIPs. And you'll see something kind of drop in chat from time to time. You'll see it kind of like halfway through the list there, that if you're in the tech industry and you want to talk about like what you do, you can see it right here in chat. Just drop me a line. I'd love to have other folks on the stream as well. And then let's see, Tiff Bites, Tiffany Yacha, who is a streamer here. She's actually streaming right now, also doing resume reviews and kind of coffee chat, ask me anything kind of stuff around careers. Also fantastic streamer. Go give Tiffany a follow as well. Really fantastic engineering manager who has a lot of cool insight. We had Tiffany on the stream a couple of months back, and really cool to chat with her. Let's see, I think that's pretty much it. So I want to get Streamer Bot going over the next couple of weeks as I get all the other like OBS 28 stuff sorted out with the Stream Deck and things like that. So we'll get all that rolling in a little bit. I know I started a couple of minutes early tonight. I was just kind of sitting around, so I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and start streaming, and then we'll get rolling on the top of the hour with the resume reviews. So if you're lurking in chat, feel free to drop a hello. Let me know you're there, and yeah, we'll get started in a little bit. Let me see if I can fix some of the Streamer Deck stuff while I'm here. Does it have to actually reinstall Stream Deck? That sounds a bit extreme. But it's saying that the Elgato remote control plugin is missing somehow. So let me try and stop Stream Deck. Try and restart Stream Deck. Nope. Restart Stream Deck. See if we can get this going here. Nope. The Elgato remote control plugin is missing. Please reinstall Stream Deck. Try again. All right. Elgato Stream Deck and is missing. Oh, it's telling me I have to completely quit OBS. Well, that's not happening. This plugin is installed into OBS Studio with the Stream Deck software installed. Well, I can't quit OBS. I'm in the middle of streaming. All right, well, I'll download the software again anyway, just so it's ready to go. Let's see, Stream Deck. See if I can just install it again while I'm here. See if it'll just happen to magically work. You never know. I'm guessing no, and that it's going to tell me that I have to completely stop OBS, but we'll try it anyway. Oh, there it is. It tried to throw an admin installation thing, but then it just paused on a blank screen there for several moments. So, all right, so we're reinstalling now. We'll see if Stream Deck will come back up and keep running. Hopefully it doesn't reset everything on the Stream Deck. No, everything's still there. So let's try this again. Waiting for OBS. At least now it's trying to connect to OBS at least. So we'll see. I may have to restart OBS anyway, but if that's the case, then I'll just do it later because I'm not restarting OBS in the middle of the stream. That would be counterproductive. So anyway, if you're hanging out in chat, drop a hello. Let me know you're there. We're going to get started with resume reviews here in just a moment. I was hoping to get the Stream Deck back up and running, but it looks like it's not going to work. So that's okay. We'll get that up and running later on. Cool deal. So yeah, drop a hello in chat. Let me know you're there. Let me know where you're from. I'm always curious how people find the stream and how people drop by and so on. You're welcome to drop a follow if you'd like. I don't require subscriptions or anything like that. Hey Sam, good to see you. Sam, aren't you streaming? What are you doing lurking in my chat? Aren't you streaming right now? Oh, you're done streaming. I thought you were still streaming. You finished? All right, cool deal. It was interesting. So Sam also streams. So go give Sam a follow as well. Really good streamer. Loves diving into code and learning all kinds of web development. The CSS challenge stuff that you had on there today was pretty interesting to watch. Making the little piano keyboard in CSS. I tried a CSS challenge like that in a mock interview one time and challenged somebody to draw Pac-Man using just CSS, and they were able to do it, but it took most of like the 1 hour session. And you know, from a realistic point of view, you're not likely to get a challenge like that as part of a technical interview. But it was interesting just to give them something a little bit different as a front-end developer, as opposed to the typical, you know, show me how you center a div on a page and stuff like that. I thought it would make for a more interesting sort of mock interview. Can't wait to become a CSS master. Yeah, you and me both. I don't make things pretty. I make them work. I let other people make things pretty. But yeah, anyway. So we're going to dive in on some resume reviews, and then we'll get into some Discord questions. But if you got questions in the meantime, absolutely, please drop them in chat as we go. And we'll get going from there. Whoa, dude. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. First time chat. I see your name pop up on various sites promoting tips on job searching, something I need to start taking more seriously. Awesome. Well, thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you finding me online and so on. Welcome to the stream. So I've got this whole website, techinterview.guide, that you can go check out. I've got lots and lots of information that you can go see. My Stream Deck is broken, so I don't know whether I'll be able to like mash any of these buttons, but we'll see. Yeah, there we go. So I've got a Discord community that you can go hang out with. And you can also find me on all the socials as Ian Douglas 736. I like to hang out on Twitter and LinkedIn most of the time. So if you got questions about career-related stuff, you're absolutely welcome to drop me a line. And a lot of times, folks will ask questions on those other platforms. I'll answer them, and then I'll bring the question over here to the live stream and anonymize it, so I don't say like, "Oh, Sam asked this really, off the wall question." So I never put anybody's name on it. Also, if you'd like to just ask a question anonymously, you can do that as well. You can just send a whisper over to my bot, and it'll show up as an anonymous question. So don't make the message too long, otherwise it won't come through. But if you have an anonymous question that you'd like to ask, you're welcome to utilize that. Just send a whisper over to my bot, and it'll show up. But yeah, otherwise I like to do just kind of general Q&A. We occasionally have guests on the stream, and so this coming Sunday we've got Praveen, who's going to be on the site, and Praveen. Let me go back to their bio. So they do developer relations. So similar to myself, I work for a company called Postman. We make an API platform tool. And Praveen is also in developer relations, or sometimes what we call developer advocacy. And they're also a full stack developer in JavaScript. And so I like having other perspectives of people that are in the tech industry and kind of what they do and what their journey was into tech and things like that. And, kind of their take and perspective on the job market, and how long did it take them to get into the industry, and what kind of sort of journey they took from not knowing how to code all the way through to now where they're being paid as a developer, or in this case, went from being a developer to a developer advocate, and what that journey was like. Which I know I've covered a couple of times on the stream now, so I don't want to like play that theme out too much. But we have all kinds of folks on here. We've had people that are into DevOps and sales engineering, all kinds of different roles. We've had different engineering managers and so on the stream. We were supposed to have a startup founder on the stream last week, but it didn't work out. So I want to get Oliver back on the stream at some point, just to hear their sort of take on what it's like to do hiring as a startup founder, and what they look for. Like, what stands out to them is not going to be the same thing that stands out to, say, a FANG company. So I like to share lots of resources, like to share lots of ideas, and again, just my perspective. I know I'm like one of many voices, but I also highly encourage people to go listen to lots of people, listen to lots of perspectives, because you can better form your own opinion when you listen to the opinion of other people. And so I always encourage people, like, don't ever just listen to me. Don't ever do just like only what I tell you to do, because I'm just one opinion. But definitely go listen to lots of other opinions and form your own opinion based on that. So tonight we're going to dive in on a couple of resume reviews. So I'm going to switch my screen here, and we're going to dive in on a few resumes. So let me pull up my list here, and I've got some notes with some of them. Some of them don't have notes. And so we'll just kind of take them at face value and sort of go through them. So this first one was submitted not anonymized. And there's a little checkbox on the form. If you ever want a resume review, you can send it over to this link that you'll see in chat. And you can send over a resume. I do ask that you anonymize it, but if you don't want to, there's a checkbox saying like, I have either anonymized it or I'm okay with my information being out there. So here's the first resume that we're going to take a look at. Now this person is not in America. And so in other countries in the world, they don't always have like they have different sort of standards and expectations on what they build. And in this case, they didn't give me any kind of notes to go on as far as like what they want out of their resume review. And so we're just going to take a look at this and say, okay, well, from a CV point of view, so from a European CV or curriculum vitae, what would we be looking for on here? And several years ago, it was absolutely okay to put your picture on a CV. Nowadays, I highly recommend don't put your picture on here. People don't need to know that. They also don't need your full mailing address. They don't need to know this information. At most, maybe the country that you're in, or the time zone that you're in, or something like that, if you're looking for a remote job. Now, if you're looking for work in a particular area, then it would be okay to say, I live in this particular city or province or state or something like that. Like here in the United States, I might say, if you want a job in New York, put on your resume that you live in New York. You're more likely to get interviews, more likely to get a job offer than if you live in San Francisco and you want a job in New York. Because then they're like, well, if we want people to come back to the office, we got to relocate this person, or they're going to be offline for several weeks while they relocate. And some companies don't want to take that risk. And so I usually tell people, don't put your location on here. It can subject you to geographic bias. But in this case, maybe that's a standard. Maybe that's something that's okay with them. But I would say you probably don't need your full mailing address on here. I think that that's a bit too experienced, or a bit too explicit as far as having information on here. Again, you know, maybe having a photo on here for a European CV in the past was okay, but I know European recruiters now that I've had conversations with several of them now, and they're like, yeah, we don't need your picture on a resume, because again, it can subject you to bias. So I would generally recommend like take this kind of stuff off your resume. In this case, they do a really good job kind of calling out their own title. Like, this is what they want to call themselves. They're a web and mobile blockchain developer. One thing that I noticed with this is I can highlight the letters in their name, but I can't highlight the letters in web and mobile blockchain developer. This is a graphic on the background as well as their headshot on here, which means that these keywords are not going to be extracted on the resume from an applicant tracking system. So unless they've got mobile blockchain developer elsewhere on the resume, these words are not going to get picked up by an applicant tracking system. So as much as possible, don't put text in graphic format on your resume. Same thing with icons. Like, you don't really need an icon around this. Like, I know that this is an email address. You don't need the little envelope. I can understand that this is your location. You don't need a little map icon. Portfolio, again, I don't even know what this is. It looks like a newspaper. Like, that's not really applicable to portfolio in this case. But they do show mobile applications. So I think that that's, you know, it's a good use of the space, but I can't click on any of these to expand them or make them bigger or anything like that. So there's not much I can do here as far as, you know, experiencing what they've built. I can only look at it on the resume. And unless I can zoom in on this, I can't get a whole lot of detail over how are they building out these, you know, these enormous, or these mobile applications and so on. So definitely something to consider there as far as that goes. Coming back up here, you know, I have over 8 years experience in software development. I'm always learning, following latest development standards. I provide high quality, well-tested products, provide realistic deadlines that I always met. Always? Okay. Maybe that's the case. I'm flexible with my work hours because I'm a full-time freelancer. I'm available on a daily basis. You'll know the current status of the job because I contact you with updates frequently. All this sounds really good. From a communication point of view, I know that you're going to be really proactive about this. At the same time, it gets a little tiring to read every sentence starting with the word I'm, except for this last one. It says, you'll know the current status because I contact you. So I'd say, like, mix that up a little bit. Like, maybe change up these sentences a little bit so they don't all start with a personal pronoun. But also, like, coming back to this idea of blockchain, if I search for the word blockchain, so it does show up on the page. So does the word mobile. So the words that I was hoping were going to be searchable on the page from up here are searchable. So that's fine. But, you know, even looking at this, like, this font is different than this font. Like, these two fonts as kind of a subheading look fine, but this font seems really stretched out. So from a consistency point of view, they've got these really nice design details over here. But then when you get into, you know, stuff like this, they're like, oh, where did that attention to detail go? That attention to detail just kind of went away. So just watching out for things like that, because some people aren't going to be that picky about it, but some people are like, oh, you know, like you didn't capitalize something properly, or, you know, let's say, you know, SQL on Postgres wasn't capitalized. Like, some people will just dismiss your resume just because you didn't capitalize something properly. To look at that and be really nitpicky about a font would be a pretty trivial kind of thing to do. But when I've got a job posting, I'm looking over hundreds of resumes. And so I'm looking for a quick reason to say no. I'm looking for a reason to say no when I'm looking over resumes. Like, nope. Okay, maybe. You're going on my maybe pile, and I'm going to come back to that one later, and I'll scan through the maybes again, maybe do another round of nope, as I kind of compare, you know, one to another. As far as the overall skills go, the order that you put these skills would depend a lot on what I'm looking for as like within my company. Now, from what they're saying up here, it's a little hard to tell if they're looking for full-time work, because they say they're a full-time freelancer. So in this case, again, they didn't submit any notes with what they want to critique over. So I'm going to look at this from a purely like freelancer point of view. So from a freelancer point of view, it would be good to know, okay, you've got a lot of experience in a lot of different languages and a lot of different frameworks, a lot of different platforms like Google Firebase, using lots of databases and so on. Although MongoDB, the DB here is not capitalized properly. So again, attention to detail on that sort of thing. But mobile development, blockchain development. So they've got a wide variety of experience. Now, they claim to know all of this with only 8 years of experience. Is that possible? Absolutely, it's possible. The question is, how deep is their knowledge in any of these things if they spent 8 years building up such a wide variety of programming languages and frameworks and different platforms between web and mobile and blockchain? And so on previous streams, I've talked about being what we call a T-shaped engineer, where you have a breadth of knowledge, but you go really deep on a few things. So being a T-shape, you've got this breadth of knowledge, and then you go really deep on fewer things. It's hard for me to tell what they've gone really deep on. Maybe React, because their mobile development is also React Native using Flutter, maybe, but it's really hard to tell. When you're building out a resume, the key thing here is that you want to point out to them in a hurry the value that you bring to that specific company. Now, as a freelancer, your job is to say, hey, I can do a lot of things, and I can do a lot of things well. That's how you're going to gain attention from having a freelancer type of resume, or in this case, a CV. So you want to show that you have a variety of skills. The problem is all they list here is education, and they can, under an additional skill, they say English. Clearly their resume is written in English, so presumably they read and write English. But I can't click on anything here on their portfolio. They don't share a GitHub account, so I can't go experience anything that they've built. I have no proof that they actually know any of this stuff, unless I call them, but they don't even provide a phone number. The best I can do is email them. So I can email them and say, hey, I got a copy of your CV. I'd like to chat about, what you can do as a programmer. But I'm more likely to just say no on a CV like this or on a resume like this, because you claim to know these things. You put some screenshots on here, but I don't know for sure that these are even your projects. Like, you could have grabbed these off of, Shutterstock or something. I don't know. These could be somebody else's application. Unless I see them on your GitHub, where I can see that you've done these commits with a username that maybe matches your email address or maybe matches something like your real name, I don't know for sure that these projects are even yours. You claim all these skills, but I have no way of verifying it before I even get you on the phone. So in that regard, as a hiring manager, I would actually pass on this resume, because I can't verify that you do any of this. There's no LinkedIn profile, there's no GitHub profile. You claim to know these things, but I don't know for sure. Also, they claim to have 8 years of experience as a software developer. They graduated in 2015. So March of 2015, it's now 2022. That's only 7 years. So how did they have 8 years of professional experience if they didn't even finish school until 2015? If they were getting paid for project work while they were in school, then that's fine. That counts as professional experience. But it does raise some suspicion over, okay, well, they said that, they were going to school over the span of these 5 years, but they claim to have 8 years of experience, but that math doesn't add up. And again, there's no project work on here. There's no LinkedIn history to show me when you started freelancing, who your client base is, and all you've shown me are a couple of screenshots over here that I can't even really zoom in on to get a lot of detail on. So as a hiring manager, I would pass on this resume. So how would I fix the resume? I would make these links, if anything, like put these on GitHub or some kind of code repository or some sort of portfolio site that I can actually go verify that this was yours. That would be the first thing I would do. The second thing, as a hiring manager, it's good to know that you've got all these skills. Maybe my company doesn't do anything with blockchain, doesn't do anything with Web3, but maybe I'm looking for a Python developer. Well, Python is way down the list over here. So if you're submitting your resume to me, the first thing I see is JavaScript, 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 then PHP, then HTML, and then Python. If this were a resume coming into me and I was hiring for a Python developer, I would want to see Python listed first, because I want to see in a hurry, is this resume, is this CV relevant to what I'm looking for in an employee? Now, in this case, they're a freelancer, so maybe I would loosen that requirement up a tiny bit and say, okay, do they have PHP anywhere on here? The thing is, I have no verification of what you can do in Python. I have no idea how long you've used Python. Have you been using it for a month? Have you been using it for all of those 8 years? You don't give me any indication, and I have no project or background experience or anything like that to verify it. So for all those reasons, I would pass on this resume. So to make that better, again, I would add a GitHub link or a LinkedIn profile outlining these are the kinds of projects that I've worked on. These are the times that I've worked on it, or this is how much experience or how many years of experience I've had in each of these different technologies, just to show, okay, I've been doing such and such for a certain amount of time. Now, Web3 is relatively new. Blockchain has been around, but like Web3 is relatively new. So, some of these technologies are probably less than a year old. Ethereum has been around for a while, but I don't know about Solidity. Smart contracts have been around for a little bit, but Web3.js, PancakeSwap, NFTs, like that's really only been around for a relatively short amount of time. So do I read this from top to bottom as far as like I've used React the most and I've done Firebase and all these other databases the least, which then also tells me that maybe you haven't done very much Python? So again, there's too much left to question here. So I would make these projects links to repos where I can go verify what the code is, the depth of what you've done, how you've contributed to these, if they're solo projects or if these were projects for clients. Were they open sourced? If not, that's fine, but like show me a portfolio site where you give me more information, because I need more than just a screenshot to go on. How big is the app? Is it in a Play Store? Can I go download it? Can I go look at what you've done? Is there something more that I can go through? Is there like a demo video or anything that I can see about what you've done where you explain, this is what I did, this is how I built it, these were the technologies that I used? Like, I don't know if you used Google Firebase on any of these 4 projects, or if that's just a skill that you happen to do on the side, or did you use Firebase on all of these? Like, I don't know. So you definitely need a lot more information on that. So that would be my take on that resume. I realized I didn't do a clip on that one, so I'm going to do a clip on this next resume as we walk through it. So let me pull up the notes on resume number 2. All right, resume number 2. So they gave me some information on this one. They said, this is my name. I'm pursuing a bachelor's with a specialization in computer science. I'm not getting hired even though I have skills. My resumes are being rejected. It's giving me a lot of stress. Help me fix my resume. I'd like to know what to do. So let's go take a look at that resume. All right, so this person lives in India. And the text is highlightable on here, which is fine. And usually when I see these kinds of resumes, the first thing I like to try to do is like actually highlight the text on here just to make sure that it's actually highlighting and capturing everything properly. It lets me know that, whatever generated this PDF actually did a good job actually making the PDF file for you. Some of them, the text gets kind of janky, which means it's being scanned and viewed by applicant tracking systems in a bad way. So let me back up and so I want to start a clip on this one as well. So let me do that. All right, the second resume that we've got here, the note came in, said, I'm pursuing a bachelor's in computer science. I'm not getting hired even though I have skills. My resumes are being rejected. It's giving me a lot of stress. Please help me fix my resume. So let's dive in a little bit. I was mentioning before I started the video clip that I like to kind of go through and like highlight the text on here, make sure that everything is being picked up properly. Notice, for example, that when I highlight the text on here, it doesn't pick up the word stream. That didn't get highlighted. And if I continue to drag down here, achievements and tasks doesn't get highlighted. All the other text on the page does seem to get highlighted. If I hit Control A, then it does highlight everything on the page. So that is one thing to be aware of, is how is this text actually being sort of picked up and translated as plain text. So what I would typically do on that is highlight everything on the page, copy it to my clipboard, and then paste it in a text editor. And that'll let you see what an applicant tracking system will see in the order that it sees it. Does it see your name first? Does it see, blocks of relevant information sort of with each other, like as far as your skills and projects and things like that go? So let's take a look at this. So we did another resume review earlier where we talked about, do you need to have a profile picture on your resume? In some cultures and some countries, it's okay to. In the United States, we generally recommend not to put a profile picture on here, as well as European CVs. They recommend not having a profile picture on here because it can subject you to bias. So the first thing I would probably do is take the picture off of here. You do have a kind of an opening statement here. I'm a tech explorer, comma, on starts with a capital O, so just watching out for grammar and spelling like that. On the path of learning new skills and making myself proficient in various tech stack while being a persistent problem solver with inquisitive nature to drive improvements. So this is a really, really long sentence that could probably be broken into like 2 or 3 sentences. And just be really careful about grammar. I have a strong attention to work efficiently with a high level of accuracy. So again, just being aware of grammar and syntax and what you're actually writing, and getting someone to actually come through and proofread your resume would be a good idea. Now, as a hiring manager, do I get any value out of this? So when I'm looking over a resume, I'm looking for a reason to say no. I'm looking for, how is this person going to have an impact on my team? That's really what I'm looking for in a resume. What are you bringing to my team? What's on this resume that's going to make me go, whoa, I want them to come do that here? That's what you want on a resume. You want to kind of play on my emotion a little bit of like, I can come do that there. You just need to hire me. I bet I can come do that for you too. And so as much as possible, when I look at these resumes, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, can you come do that here? So you're a tech explorer, you're learning new skills, you're making yourself proficient in various tech stack while being a persistent problem solver, inquisitive. So there's not a lot of value to me yet. You're telling me like your personal attributes, like you like problem solving, you like efficiency, you like to learn, but that doesn't tell me what you bring as an overall skill set. So in this case, they're learning computer science. They're graduating in May of 2023, but they haven't really pointed, like in this opening statement, they haven't really said like, this is where I'm taking my career. So for a new graduate type resume, whether you're coming out of a degree program or whether you're coming out of a boot camp, what I want to see as far as the value that you're bringing to me is, what is your overall goal? Where do you want to take these skills? What is it that you want to do with these superpowers now that you know how to like write code and you're a software developer or web developer or mobile developer in DevOps, whatever kind of role you want to be? What do you want to do with that? That's what I want to see on this page. I want you to tell me the story of like, I see you're headed in this direction. Guess what? I'm also headed in that direction. We might as well do this together. That's really what I'm looking for here. So there's not a lot in this opening statement that says, hey, this is the impact I can come have on your team. There's not anything in here that really tells me anything like that. We got an email address, we got a location. Again, having a location on a resume can subject you to geographic bias. But if you're looking for a job in this particular area, then it's okay to have on your resume. If you're not looking for a job in that area or you're looking for a remote job, I would take your location off completely. They've got a Twitter feed on here. I'm actually going to copy this Twitter link. I'm going to open it in a different browser window. Having a Twitter link on a resume can be a little bit of a dangerous thing. Because I may go look at your tweets and I may want to see like, what are you retweeting? What are you actually tweeting about? Are you tweeting about technical topics? Or are you tweeting anything at all? In this case, when I look through their Twitter history, it's really short. Like they've been on Twitter for a couple of years, but I could probably count on my 2 hands how many actual Twitter messages they've actually posted. So to me, having this Twitter feed on the resume has no benefit whatsoever. I don't see any value as a hiring manager when I look at your Twitter feed. So I would take the Twitter feed off. Unless you're staying up to date on all these things, you know, you're trying to learn all these new skills and you're trying to learn all these new tech stacks and trying to be proficient in all this stuff. If you're going to put a Twitter feed on there, then that Twitter feed better show me, hey, I just learned this thing. Hey, go check out this project that I just made learning this new thing. Hey, go check this thing out. Or, hey, I just signed up for this course. Like, I don't see any of that on your Twitter feed. I see a pinned tweet that looks like some sort of maybe a hackathon of some kind. I see like a response to someone else's tweet. I see a tweet about a hackathon, but that hackathon was just this past August. I see a couple of retweets. I see a message from back in February about like, is it me or is everybody awake at 4 a.m.? And then a tweet from March 2021. And it's about holograms. And it's just, hey, you know, this Microsoft Ignite thing is kind of interesting and fun from a VR, AR perspective. There's nothing of value on your Twitter feed. So I would take that Twitter feed off completely. There's no value to a hiring manager to see that on there. Phone number is fine. They need a way to contact you. LinkedIn is good. Try to see if you can get these random numbers off your name if possible. You can go in and you can clear that out on LinkedIn. You can sometimes customize this to be whatever you want it to be. Having a GitHub profile on here is good. I'm going to go copy that. Go open that in another browser. Ooh. All right. Well, let's talk about this. So I'm actually going to pull this up on here. So because this person chose not to anonymize their resume, I'm okay like showing this. Here's their GitHub. As a hiring manager, like this would be an immediate like, nah, I'm not going to bother calling them. You have some repositories on here, but I see no value. Like I don't see you coding on a regular basis. So you're in a computer science program, but I don't see regular programming. Now, that's not to say that you're not coding all the time. You probably are. I would get that stuff on GitHub. If you're going to put a GitHub repo on your resume, I should see some commits. You've got a couple of repos on here. If I go look at your top pinned repos from 2 years ago, let's go look at your to-do app. 16 months ago. Logistics, 15 months ago. Some kind of front end, 13 months ago, 10 months ago. Titanic problem, 13 months ago. So there's nothing recent on your GitHub. Everything on here is at least a year old, up to 2 years old. So again, like looking over your resume of what value do you bring to my team? Right now, I haven't seen any value. So those would be the first things. So again, the note that they provided was, I'm not getting interviews. I'm not able to find a job. Like, what's wrong with my resume? Well, there's two things already. You're putting a Twitter feed on there that is of no value. Well, actually, three things. Your opening statement here doesn't talk about the value of like where you're taking your career, what you want to be doing. Like call yourself a software developer as a title, put that under your name, but then like tell me what you want to do with your career. And your GitHub is completely empty. So hiring managers are going to look at this and go, you've got all these really old repositories. You haven't been doing any recent coding. This looks like you haven't written any code since February. And you made one commit back in February. And if I go look at that one commit, it's literally a quoted comment in a README file. It's not even correct markdown. So as a hiring manager, I would look at this and go, there's no value here. It looks like you started on the customized sort of layout here, but something about this didn't work out because I don't actually see that showing up when I load up your GitHub profile. If you go to my GitHub profile, for example, you see all the customized stuff here. For whatever reason, yours isn't showing up. So you did a bunch of work on that custom README, but it's not actually showing up as part of your repo. So like fix that stuff. Those are probably major flags that employers are looking at that going, you say you're a developer. I see no recent activity that shows me proof of that. So let's go back to the resume here. So you've been there since August 2019. You're graduating in May of 23. You've got your GPA on here. It's a good GPA. So again, in India, their GPA is out of 10. So it's a really high GPA. It's good. How High school is probably not going to be as important, but again, that can be cultural. That might be an expectation in India, but here in the United States, that wouldn't be. They would just want to see college or university or boot camp or things like that. They wouldn't care about high school unless there was something specific that you learned at that high school that is applicable. So, for example, my senior year of high school, I took a specific electrical engineering set of classes in order to get into an electrical engineering program at college. And so if I were applying for an electronics type of job or an IoT type of job, I might list that on my resume. Even though it was 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't put high school on my resume now. But those would be the first couple of things that stand out there. The skills, I like that you've got, kind of a different way of presenting this in these little blocks. But I see language, framework, platform, high level concept, language, CCNA. That's it's like a certification. AR is kind of like, augmented reality, but that's not really, it's like a type of programming, I guess, or, a type of technology. Figma as a tool, React as a library, back to languages. Then you call yourself a backend developer. Like, put that title up here at the top if you're doing backend. Back to a language, back to a tool and library. I mean, coding. Yeah, you're a software developer. Like, you don't need coding on here. You've already shown me coding by telling me all this other stuff. You don't have to explicitly say coding. Social media handling. Again, that's not a lot of value. If you're looking for a software development job, social media handling is not an attribute that you would have on your resume. And looking at your Twitter feed, it doesn't show it. You haven't demonstrated that skill. When I go look at your Twitter feed, the social media handling does not line up as far as like seeing a competency of, do you have thousands of followers or something like that? You got like 66 followers on Twitter. So again, it doesn't show a lot of value to me as a hiring manager of like, I can come do this for you. You've got your project work on here. You got a to-do app. But again, this was a long time ago. Job scope, you actually list as May 2022, but I don't see that repo. So let's go look at all of your other repositories here. What was that one called? Job scope. Job scope helps students find recruiters and explore their interests. So I like that you're starting with a user empathy statement. I think that's really important. I think that's great. Avlabari, thanks for the follow. As opposed to existing job search platforms, the large scope of jobs makes it difficult to find and apply for, especially without prior experience or a networking mindset. So that's fine, but where is the project? Like, how do I get to this? So you claim that this was April through May of this year, but I don't see a repository for it. The last repository was updated in February. These are all chronological order. So I don't see anything in here that shows me that you worked on that repository in the time that you're showing me on the resume. So where's that code? How do I get to that application? Where do I actually get to go see that app and go experience that application? So a couple of things that I would put on the resume here is give me a link to the project. I don't necessarily need to know when you did it if it's a recent project. If it was an old project, then I think that that's fine. If I was looking for somebody who knows Spring, like that was a Java developer that knew Spring, listing that project first would be the way to go, because that's the immediate value that you bring. You're showing me I'm a Java developer. I know how to build an application in Spring Boot. Job scope, though, you don't tell me anything about the technologies that you use, so I don't know how you built it. You don't link to a repo. I can't go experience that application at all, so it's of no benefit. A card and document scanner, it's kind of this ongoing project, but again, you don't link that on your resume either. Secure authentication, privacy protection. But again, start with a user empathy statement first. Like, what is this app about? And then tell me like what it's built in and so on. It's a web front, a mobile app, and an API to integrate. So it's a web front, it's a mobile app, and it's an API to integrate them both. But both is two things, not three things. So again, be careful about the grammar on this sort of stuff. which eliminates the use of external physical scanners, thereby saving its purchasing and maintenance costs in both existing ad hoc kiosks. Okay. There's a great user empathy statement but I would probably start with eliminate the purchase and maintenance costs of these kiosks by using this mobile app, to replace, or users can use a mobile app to replace these other kiosks and so on. Hey, Finet, good to see you in chat. So again, I'm not seeing, like, it's a good user empathy statement, and you do list some of the technologies that you used here. You did Flutter, React, Mongo, AWS. But again, I don't see this application anywhere on your GitHub. Your GitHub is really, really empty. So you put it on your resume claiming that you've done this project, claiming that you know these technologies, but you're not backing that up. You're listing a GitHub profile that's empty, and you're giving me a Twitter feed that doesn't give me enough information to know that I would want to hire you. Work experience, it's good to show. If you've done any kind of professional experience, I think that this is fine. You've done some research work. You are also a web analyst for a company called One Life. Interactive web for people who are struggling with mental health. That's cool. Added a voice AI bot. That's great. Research on various mental health programs and how technology can fix it. Okay. So you call yourself a web analyst, but then you claimed you're doing research. So again, just making sure that you're choosing the right kinds of words. Now, one thing that I noticed about the resume is you've got a lot of font changes on here as well. You've got one font, one color, and one font size. You change, I think it's the same font, but you go from all caps to title case with a different font size, a different font weight, and a different font color. Your project title then looks to me like it's another font in another size. It's also like black font, but the font size is also different, and it's a different font face. And then you change again to go to italics, and then you change the color with the italics, and then you change the color again, and then you go back to black font in a different font again. So what I would do, highlight all the text on here, make it a single font face, make everything a single font size, and then go and very carefully choose where you want to change font sizes. But right now, this actually psychologically is very hard to read from a reader's perspective, because as they're scanning through, they're like, whoa, font change, whoa, font change, whoa, font change. And it's distracting subconsciously. They may not be able to put words to it, but they're going to read over this resume and go, something's weird about this resume. And it's because you're changing the font and the style and the color of the font and the styling and the syntax of the font and the font face so many times that people are going to start skimming through this and go, no. Organizations, I love that you got this stuff on here. It's important to show these kinds of things, especially like student ambassadors. So definitely keep those on there. Postman student. Hey, Postman. Hooray. Now, so these are still ongoing. This was only 1 month long, which is fine. I would probably try to pull out a little more detail of like, what did you do in these? You're listing some other certificates, which is fine. You mentioned the CCNA in your skills block up above. World Skills Russia AR/VR Championship. Okay, that's cool. But again, some of these are really old. And again, you're not really providing code to sort of back these up. Now, on your Twitter feed, I did see the hackathon. But again, these are also out of chronological order. So this one was present. This one was a long time ago. This one was more recent than this one. So Google Cloud should actually be above World Skills. And this one is also newer than everything else. So this should actually be first. So you always want to list things from newest to oldest on your resume as well. So a handful of things that I would update and change. Now, I've actually got this, and you can actually do, I think it's bang resume sample. You can go grab this this Google Doc, or you can just go to tig.fyi/resume sample, and it'll get you over to this Google Doc. And you're welcome to grab anything off of this Google Doc that you like. These are just little snippets of like, here's some different ways that you can lay out your project. You can lay out sort of your contact information, your skills block, and things like that. You're welcome to steal any of this or not use it at all. Either way is fine. When it comes to project work, I like to see the title of it, whether it was a solo or group project. Give me a link where I can go experience it. If you've got it published somewhere online, let me click on that. Let me go experience what you built. If it's a mobile app, take me over to like the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store or something like that, where I can download the app and maybe log in and tinker with it. Give me a repo. If you can give me a repo to actually go see the code, at a minimum, I would want to see code on GitHub for a project. If you can give me a link to actually go experience that, that's even better. The how we made it, that was something that some students were asking, like if we make a demo video about it, like could we link that on the resume? And I said, sure, you could do that. Give me that user statement, give me something fun and geeky that you learned about that project, and then just simplify your tech stack. These were the technologies that we used. To me, as a hiring manager, I look over this and go, this is clean, this is readable. I can quickly see the value that this person would bring to my team because they built this kind of application. I can go see the code. I can verify it was them. I can see how they did their commits. I can see how they contributed to a project. If it was a group project, what was your responsibility on that team? And these are the technologies. And so you're showing me, this is what I know. This is where I practiced it. This is where I've learned it. When I look at this resume, though, I don't get that sense of like, you claim to know these things, you claim to have worked on these projects, but I have no way of verifying. I have no proof of any of this. So a handful of things that I would probably rearrange here. Now, do you keep it in 2 columns? That's up to you. That's a personal choice. If you want a 2-column resume, that's okay. But as a hiring manager, when I look at a resume, I need to quickly see, is this value that you bring to my company? Like when I read over a resume, again, what's going through my mind is, I want you to come here and do this at my company as well. And I don't get a lot of that out of this resume. So the note that was sent over was, I've got a resume, I'm not finding a job, like what's wrong with my resume? That's probably it. I think hiring managers are going to look at this and go, okay, and like, what's the value that you bring to me? Where are you taking your career? Do you want to work in AR, VR? Because you've got some project work around that, or at least you claim to. I can't go verify any of that anywhere. So you need to tell me, like, this is the interest that I have. This is where I want to take my career. Make that more prominent. If you want to be an AR, VR developer, make that really prominent on your resume. Give yourself that title under your name, AR, VR developer. Make those technologies the first technologies I see in your skills block. Make that project the first project that I see. So it's an immediate in my face, like, oh yeah, you're an augmented reality, virtual reality developer. Here's all these things that you've done. Right now, it's kind of scattered all over the place, and I've got no quick way to sort of summarize all of this to see the value that you would bring to me. All right, let me catch up on chat. Saw a bunch of people drop in. Sethi, good to see you in chat as well. And we got RC Maniac hanging out. RC Maniac, I think you gave me a link. Was it you that gave me this Fubo Careers website? Let me know in chat. I think you were asking me to like look through some job posts or something several weeks back. Let me know if that was you. It was you. Okay. We'll see if we can get to that after we get through the resume reviews. Finite, good to see you in chat. Dota 2, good to see you as well. Got all kinds of folks dropping by today, so thanks for swinging through. We're gonna just get through a couple of resume reviews here. We'll maybe do some Q&A and stuff as we go. Looks like we had a question from Sethi, so let me dive in on some of that. If you remember my case last week, the question I got was, write an array of 20 strings with no C or S or a TH or the with each string of length 6. It was quite good. Was able to code in Java in 30 minutes and be able to explain my solution. Awesome, good for you. Yeah, good deal, good deal. I'm just looking through, see if I missed anything in chat. RC Maniac, thanks for sharing context with people in chat. Appreciate that. Just Joe Wow, good to see you as well. RC Maniac works at Fubo, yeah. So we'll get into some of these Fubo jobs as we go if we got some time. All right, well let's keep going with the resume reviews. If you do have questions in chat, you're absolutely welcome to drop those in. Sethi asks, would it be a good idea to have a 2-column resume for sending the resume directly to a recruiter and a regular one for applying to get past the applicant tracking system? So that's a really good question as well. Having 2 different formats is a little bit tricky because if you apply to a job with one resume, that's going to go into the applicant tracking system. If you send a different one to the recruiter, they may try and put that in the applicant tracking system anyway. So now you're in there twice, and you may get pulled up on multiple things, or they may just go in and throw out the old one and put in the new one that you send them. So I would say as long as you get the keywords on either resume, it probably doesn't matter which one that you submit. When it comes to the 2-column format, I've heard anecdotally from exactly one recruiter. I have not verified this with any other recruiter. Rather, I have not had any other recruiter verify this for me. But this one recruiter said that when an applicant tracking system sees a resume with 2 columns, it treats the left column with less importance than the right column, because the typical layout that is seen on these things is a really skinny left column and a really wide right column. And so that left column might be like your contact info, maybe a list of like a vertical list of your skills, maybe your education, and then all your project work and all the really important stuff that you want to see is going to be in that right column. And so some applicant tracking systems, according to this recruiter, put more value on the content in that right column because it sees it that it's wider and that there's more information on that side. And so it may treat it with different weights. Again, I haven't been able to verify that with anybody else, so I don't know whether that's true. I don't think there's anything wrong one way or the other with a 2-column format. Where I would caution people is having an exact 50-50 split where they're both exactly the same width, because when you think about visual design, I'm not going to read this column and then go read this column. I'm scanning down that page one time to try to determine in a hurry, does this bring value to me and my team? If I can't find that value, you're going on the no pile. If I kind of see value, you're going on the maybe pile, and then maybe I'll review it a second time with a little more, careful look. And if not, you're going back on the no pile, or maybe you're going to get a phone call out of it. So as much as possible, you want to try to draw their eye across the page by using a little bit of bold or using a little bit of syntactic difference on the page, whether you're using a little bit of italic or a header that's in a slightly different color, something like that, to really kind of draw that subconscious interest in like, oh, this is interesting to read, as opposed to just plain black text. Everything's the exact same font, exact same size. Like, we need a little bit of variety in there to keep people interested in what's actually on the page. So there are a handful of things there that would play into that. So I would generally stay away from like a 50-50 split. I think doing like a 70-30 split is fine one way or the other, but where you put like the most meaningful content is really up to you. Just keep in mind that as readers, our eyes drift to the path of least resistance. So wherever there's more empty space, you're drawing our eye over there, because we want to go look at, sparse information to see like, oh, there's a short list over here. Let me go scan that real quick instead of this wall of text. I'm going to avoid that really thick wall of text if there's something easier that I can go read. Just subconsciously, that's how we're going to read things. And so you want to be careful about how you draw our eye across the page. And that's why when we go over to that resume sample that I was showing a minute ago, we're kind of drawing their eye to like a couple of these bolded sorts of things, and then we're bringing their eye like straight down here because all of this stuff is in bold. When we see bullet point lists, we're only picking up the first 5 or 6 words as I'm scanning down that page anyway. I'm not reading horizontally across the page, I'm skimming vertically. And so I need to see in a hurry, like, what did you do? I collaborated, I consulted, I created, built, blah, blah, blah. Like that's why you want to start those bullet points with that really strong action verb, because that's what I'm reading. That's actually what I'm skimming as I'm reading down that page. I'm not reading all the way over to the very end of the line. Like later on, if you're on my maybe pile, now I'm actually going to spend probably more like 30 seconds to a minute reading back over the resume, and I'm going to pick up a lot more information. But when I'm just skimming over this the first time, you're drawing my eye, the Ian Douglas software engineer, like you're kind of setting me up if I were to build like another tab stop around here, let's say, where this blue tick is on the page. I'm really only reading this much across that page. Like imagine if that were a column all the way down the page. That's all I'm reading, is just coming straight down there going, okay, this is the project. Yep. Okay. They did that technology. Okay. Another project. It was a group project. This was their responsibility. Okay. So they're calling out how they did different things. And so you're drawing their eye down a particular path on the page. Later, when they come back, they're going to pay attention to, oh, what were the dates on these things? They might read more of the words on those lines. But to quickly skim, they need to see in a hurry, what are the skills? What are the projects? What value are you bringing? So again, as a hiring manager, what I like to see is, what do you claim to know? How have you claimed to use it? Where have you learned it? And so where you've used it could be professional experience if you're already in the industry, or it'll be project work if you're still a student or just graduated. And then all your other experience would be after that. Hey, RevCorps, good to see you. First time chat. I noticed your resume sample doesn't include a bio summary. I generally don't add a bio summary on my resumes. Partly because I've been in the industry a really long time. I kind of feel like my skills are going to sort of speak for themselves. Now, that's not to say I don't ever have a summary. So the most recent job search I did last December and January, I actually did have a quick summary on there. Because I've been in the industry so long, I wanted to draw attention to, these are the things that I do. Like, as a developer advocate, I have a strong passion for developer education and presenting ideas in clearly thought out manner, and so on and so on. On my programmer resume, it was about, these are the high level architecture skills that I bring. I bring architecture and scalability, resiliency, excuse me, and things, of that nature. And so I did call out at a high level, like, what I bring to the team. And then as a manager, I'm a people first manager. I've coached and built, teams of dozens of engineers and led teams of dozens, including offshore teams and so on. So on those resumes I have. On this sample though, I don't have one, partly because it's a little bit unnecessary. But again, kind of coming back to this last resume that we reviewed, in this case, their summary was so generic, it gives no value to a potential employer reading over the resume. There's like, when I read this, I don't immediately think like, oh, cool, I want you to come do that here. Because all I'm getting out of this is, I want to continue to learn. I want to be proficient in these things. I like to drive improvement. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's like one thing you could come bring to the team, but this is all about like personal drive and personal ambition, not about, I want to be an AR, VR developer and I'm learning the following skills and I've built the following applications. Like, you're not telling me the direction that you're taking your career. So I think for a new student, I would have a summary on there where you're telling me, like, I'm headed in this direction. So when I read that and go, oh, my company's also headed in that direction, like, we're both going the same way. As opposed to, I'm an insurance company and you want to be a mobile developer. Like, that's very incongruent and it's headed in a completely different direction than we are. And so if that were your thing, if you wanted to be a mobile game developer and I'm an insurance company, I would probably stop reading at that point and go, why are you applying to a job at an insurance company? We don't do mobile gaming. And I would probably stop reading at that point and just go, nope. Because I'm looking for a reason to say no. When I'm skinning over resumes, I'm looking for a reason to say no, pass on this person. I'm going to call someone else instead. Is a bio more relevant for someone who's just graduated? I would say yes. Because again, you want to show the direction that you're taking your career and show that you can bring that value to them. Now, as a new graduate, you're still bringing value. You're bringing fresh energy and you're bringing fresh perspectives on things. Also, really recent learning of concepts and so on. Maybe you're learning something new and edgy about AR and VR that, the developers at my company haven't yet gotten into. Or maybe you've learned something about machine learning or data science that my team hasn't learned, or it's been a while since they've studied those algorithms and they're really fresh in your mind. And so you're bringing that fresh sort of take on things, and hopefully updated curriculum and so on. So I would say from a new grad perspective, it would be important to have. So it's really up to you whether you want to have it. I would generally say if you need room on the page, that would be the first thing to take off. Like, I would rather see all this contact information up here under this person's name and use this space for something else. Like, take the photo off of here, move all the contact information up here in a smaller font, only leave the stuff that's actually relevant, like take the GitHub profile and the Twitter profile off of here because it's not helping in this case. And put more room on the page then for showing me more projects and why your project work matters to me and my company. Zooey says, if you're going to do a bio, it should relate to the job. Yeah. Or maybe a cover letter. Yeah, the cover letter can provide a lot of context to the facts that are otherwise, you know, make up your resume. Your resume is really just facts. The cover letter can give context to that. Sethi asks, is there somewhere you would recommend putting in the city or state? It can reduce the geographic bias. If you're looking for a job in New York, then put New York on the resume. If you like, if you get that job and you know, if I get that job in New York, I'm going to go move to New York anyway, then put New York on the resume. It makes them think you're already there. And if they ask, you can say like, oh yeah, my plan is to move there in a month. And so I'm interviewing. That's why I'm interviewing for a job there, so that when I move, I've got a job ready to go. That's how you would word it. You don't have to say, if I get the job, then I'm going to make plans to move. You don't have to tell them that. You can just say, my plan is to move to New York. That's why I'm looking for a job. And that's what caught my attention about your company, because you're doing what I like to do, you know, around this technology or this type of work and so on. But otherwise, I would take the location off completely. One idea that someone actually presented on the stream a while back was, if you're looking for remote work, put a time zone on there, so they know at least what time zone you're in. But they don't have to know where you're located, especially if it's a remote job. They shouldn't care where you're located. Some companies will base their pay based on where you live, which, you know, has pros and cons in and of itself. In which case you want to let them think that you're moving to like a dense urban area, like, oh yeah, I'm totally moving to the Bay Area, I'm totally moving to New York. So that offer letter will come in with the New York salary, even if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to move to a high density urban area of, you know, Michigan or something like that. Because sometimes they'll base your pay based on where you live. And so you want them to think that you're going to move to some, you know, really expensive place to live. That would be my take on that. Finite says, I've got a very atypical journey into tech, which we're going to hear all about next week. Looking forward to that chat. Cool. All right. Well, let's dive in a little bit more on resume number 3. Let me go pull up the notes on this one. No, it's not the right one. Do that one. All right. Number 3. I would like to submit my resume for a review. If my resume got rejected by some automated stuff or not, and needing a suggestion for making it better. All right, well, let's dive in on this one. So again, people checked on a checkbox saying I have either anonymized it or I'm okay showing all the content on here. So let's go take a look at this resume. So this resume was submitted saying I'm just looking for generalized resume review to know, like, would my resume get rejected by automated features or not, and give me any suggestions for making it better. So one thing I like to do when I look at a resume is I zoom out on it. And this one, I see 2 pages plus a little bit and a lot of empty space on this second page. So you're using a 2-column format on page 1, but page 2 is basically just a single column of content, and then page 3. Now, one thing that I talk about a lot on the stream is make a really big resume. Put all your projects on there, put all your skills on there, put all the jobs you've ever had, give me lots of bullet points about your projects, lots of bullet points about your job, and save that as a really long copy of your resume. When you actually go apply for a job, you're going to trim away everything that company isn't going to care about. So wherever you're applying for a job, let's say you're going to go work for Finite Singularity's company. Finite works in Python, so you would probably want to put Python at the top of your skills block, you know, that sort of thing. So in this case, they don't have Python at all, but you would want to make any projects that you want to present on your resume really relevant to that company. So the first thing that you would do is, like when you start with that really big resume where you've got all your projects, all your skills, all your experience and so on, is you want to figure out, what is that company going to care about? What skills are they going to care about? What projects are they going to care about more than other things? Trim everything else out of there. See if you can bring it back down to 1 page. In this case, I think that it would be possible because the font size on this looks a little large. I'm guessing maybe 11-point font. Again, highlight everything, make everything 11-point font. I usually tell people your name can maybe be 18, 20-point font. the title and these headings maybe make 12 to 14 point. Everything else on the page, 10 point font. Don't go any bigger than that. Don't go any smaller than that. If it doesn't fit with 10 point font, you got too much content. So figure out which projects are going to be most relevant. What does that company do? You know, what sorts of things are going to really stand out to them? And I've shared this on the stream recently too. The 3 kinds of projects I like to see on a resume are: give me a project that's highly relevant to what my company does, whether it's a technology stack or it's a project about what we do, or if we have a technology that you've built something with that technology. So Finite Singularity, for example, is in chat right now. And Finite has this really great software package called Tau. It's the Twitch API unification project, and it's what makes all my lights blink behind me here. Let's say that was Finite's business, and Finite was actually hiring somebody to work on that project. Then I would want to see that your first project on your resume is something about Twitch, or something about a Twitch API, or maybe you've done something with Tau. Like, find a way to either build something using the same technologies that Finite Singularity's company uses, or build something with that actual technology. Make that the most prominent thing on your resume, because now it changes the introduction from, hi, I'm Ian and I have these tech skills, to, hi, I'm Ian, I'm actually a user of your software and I like it so much I want to come work there. It changes that introduction really drastically. The second project that I'd like to see is something that shows me the fundamentals of what you do as a developer. So if you want to be an AR, VR developer, then you should show me a project that shows me that you know how to do augmented reality, virtual reality. If you want to be a mobile developer, you better show me at least one mobile app. If you want to be a web developer, show me web fundamentals. Whether you're front-end developer, back-end developer, full-stack developer, like, show me the fundamentals you understand about HTTP, maybe session management, some sort of storage mechanism, maybe CRUD of form processing. Like, show me those fundamentals. And then the third project can just be something fun and geeky that's interesting to you that you're really proud of. But the first 2 projects should show me something that's extremely relevant to me and my company. The third project should be just something fun and geeky. Now, you can kind of split those out into lots of different projects if you like. Me personally, I would like to see fewer projects that show more of the fundamentals than, here's a project where I do CRUD, and here's a project where I do database, and here's a project where I do session management, and here's a project where I learned OAuth. It's like, well, put all that into one project for me. Now I've got one thing that I can go look at and experience and so on. So when it comes to seeing this kind of stuff, again, what I like to see on a resume is, what do you claim to know? How have you used it? Where did you learn it? Now, if you've learned stuff on the job, that's okay too. If you learned it at a technology school, computer science degree, boot camp, whatever, put all that stuff on the resume. It's good to have on the resume. So in this case, they're starting right away with soft skills. So they call themselves a backend developer / full stack developer. Well, pick one. If my company is looking for a full stack developer, don't call yourself a backend developer who also knows full stack. Call yourself a full stack developer. If I'm looking for a backend developer, don't put on here that you're a full stack developer. You want to show me, oh yeah, you've got that opening for a backend developer. Hey, guess what? I'm a backend developer. So call yourself whatever that company is looking for. So again, if this is the long format resume, then this is fine. Put all these different titles on here. Pick one though when you're getting ready to go apply for that job. I wouldn't start with the soft skills though, unless they're calling out like part of your job is communication, like developer relations or developer advocacy, then yeah, maybe communication stuff will be at the top, and community management and things like that. Like, maybe that could be up at the top if that's a big part of the job. But as a developer, soft skills are going to be somewhat less important than the technical skill. And I hesitate to even say somewhat, because they are still vitally important skills. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, you don't need soft skills. You absolutely need soft skills. You need to be able to work on a team, but I need to see in a hurry, do you bring value to my team with the technical skills that I need on my team? And so in this case, I see Node.js, Flask, Express.js, React.js. So I've got JavaScript, Python, JavaScript, and then you're showing me 3 different databases, but you don't show me anywhere in here the actual programming languages that you use. You don't show me Python and JavaScript. You're missing those as keywords on the resume right now. So if I search for, hey, I'm looking for a JavaScript developer, and I literally type in the letters JS, I would get a hit on your resume. But if I search for the word JavaScript, is the word JavaScript actually on this page? Oh, it is. Halfway down page 2. If all I walk away with as I'm printing out your resume, I'm like, okay, I only want a 1-page resume, so I'm just going to grab page 1. I don't see the word JavaScript on there anywhere. So you got to be careful about, like, spell out all those skills. Like, tell me every library you've ever used. Like, when you're building up that really long format resume, put every skill, every library, every technology, every programming language, every framework, every database you've ever used. Get all of that on the resume. And then trim it all back out if something's not applicable to that company when you're applying for that job. Okay, so let's go in and actually look at the work that they've actually got in here. So from May to June of last year, so for at most a 2-month period, you worked as a freelancer. And to me, this makes it look like you haven't done anything professionally since then. Your education stopped in June of 2021. You haven't done any of that. You've got some projects on here, but you don't list dates on your projects. Your GitHub repo is like way down at the bottom. Your GitHub should be up here at the top. So again, having a phone number on here is okay. Don't put your full mailing address on a resume. That's not necessary. At most, put like a city and state or city and province. But you don't need the full mailing address of where you live. They're not going to come like knock on your door and offer you a job. So yeah, make sure that your skills are well blocked out. Let's go take a look at your GitHub. Oh, so it's actual GitHub links to your project. So that's good. So you're giving me repos to 2 of your 4 projects. So why not give me a GitHub repo on these other 2? That would be something that I might want to look for on your resume. But again, you're kind of changing things up here a little bit. Like you've got single line spacing. This one looks like, you know, 1.5 spacing. Like keep everything the same sort of format on here. But yeah, I'm kind of curious, like why you don't give me a GitHub link here. Is this something that you've actually launched somewhere? Can I actually go experience this somewhere? In this case, Flask MySQL. Yeah, you do list MySQL, you list Flask. And eventually down here, I see Python, like the actual word Python popping up. But you're also listing SQL Alchemy down here. You didn't list it up above. You didn't list the Flask cores library. Go put that up above. I learned the Python Selenium package. That's fine. Python's got a capital P though, so be careful about how you're capitalizing things. Some people are a lot more picky about that than others. Some people won't care. It's going to hit on the keyword search anyway, but some people are going to care when they actually come back and read through this. So let's go take a look at the GitHub profile here. Cool. All right. Well, they coded until late last year, and then they kind of went off the grid. So what have you been doing lately? Shows you did some very sporadic programming over the summer or over the spring, but you haven't done any programming over the summer. So as a hiring manager, again, this would be a concern for me that you worked until June of last year, and then what? What have you done since then? Well, if I go look at your GitHub profile, I see that you continued to code on some other things. I can kind of click on here and I can see some high level stuff. You did, you know, Oktoberfest and stuff like that. It looks like maybe you worked on somebody else's repo. So you maybe working on some group projects with some other people, which is fine. But what have you done since then? Like very little coding after November, very, very little coding. So again, as a hiring manager, I want to know, like, how are you keeping your skills sharp? If you haven't worked professionally since June of last year, what have you been doing for the last July, August, September, the last 15 months? What have you been doing with your time? Because I don't see a lot on here. Like, I would probably give you credit up through maybe November. So from December last year to it's now September this year, that's 10 months where you've done very little programming. From what I can verify here. Maybe you've been coding every day. Put that in a private repo at least. Let's see some green dots on here for working on a private repo. So those are the first immediate things that sort of jump out to me when I look at a GitHub profile. Cool, but it looks like they were into some Web3, did some stuff with NFTs, work closely with a project manager, client, and a team lead on change requests. Okay, increase productivity and problem solving techniques. So check your spelling by 10%. Cool. You're giving me a very strong, actionable kind of thing of this is the impact that I had on a team. Love to see it. Love to see that kind of stuff on a resume. My first question is how? How did you raise this? How did you measure that it was 10%? Was it exactly 10%? Did you round it up? Did you round it down? Like, what did you do to improve something by 10%? We primarily use React, Node.js for backend APIs. 40% of my work was doing front end, 30% was back end, remaining 30% was hosting and managing websites. Okay. Which is fine. Like this is okay. So this is like a really detailed breakdown of like how you split up your day-to-day work. You could just say, you know, instead of just freelancer, I would actually say like full stack developer or full stack freelancer, and just say, you know, I did 40% of my time was building front end in React, 30% of my time was building backend APIs in Node.js, and 30% of my time was hosting and managing using what technology? What were you actually building out? Were you using AWS? Were you using Google Cloud? Like what platform were you using? Was this on Heroku? Were you self-hosting? Like tell me more about the DevOps side of what you're doing. I don't see much over here. I mean, I see AWS and Heroku and DigitalOcean and GitHub Actions and so on, but like, were you using Docker? Were you deploying things with Kubernetes? Like, what were you doing with GitHub Actions? Like, give me a little bit more about the DevOps side of it, if that's important to my company. If it's not important to my company, then you wouldn't share that information on here. Ocean inventory, Willow backend. So backend developer. Okay. Worked there for October through March, so fairly short job. And then you took a bit of a break from March until May. Most people won't care about like a small break in what you did, especially during, you know, kind of that overlap of the pandemic and so on. Train, manage, and provide guidance to junior development staff. How many? Tell me how many. Like quantify this. Tell me the impact that you had. How many people did you train? This says that you managed people, but you call yourself a backend developer. So if you managed people on your team, then it's more of a team lead position. So I would probably figure out, like, were you a lead backend developer? Maybe like maybe throw that in as a keyword that you were a lead developer. But again, you were only there for 6 months. So how much impact did you have in 6 months? You're writing a lot of this in present tense. You train, you manage, you provide guidance, you work closely with. Develops is present tense, but then you fall back to past tense where you increased past tense productivity. This job was in the past. All of this should be written in past tense. We primarily use Pern and Mern Stack. 80% of my work was doing backend. Remaining 20% was DevOps. Okay. So again, like this is fine to have on here, but I would want to dive in on a little bit more detail here for sure. Same kind of thing here. So again, telling me that you're doing LAMP stack is fine. But LAMP stack makes me think was that the Python work that you were doing, LAMP stack? Because typically LAMP was like PHP or Perl, and I don't see those languages or technologies on here. So again, just making sure that you're thorough about what you're actually providing. When we get to page 2, we don't have any contact information. So if these pages got separated, I don't know who page 2 belongs to. I'm also missing out on a lot of important stuff about your project work that ideally would maybe be part of page 1. Since you've got professional experience though, so you worked as a freelancer for 2 months, and then it looks like you got this full-time job, but again, you were only there for 2 months. So really short freelance job, really short full-time job. And then you immediately went to another full-time job, which was also very short. And then you went into freelance work again for a very short amount of time. So you're starting to raise flags for me on why did you have all these really short jobs? I would maybe wrap all of this as freelance work. You had a 6-month freelance job at this place. You had like a 2-month contract engagement or something with this other company. I would just call yourself a freelance developer. And when it comes to telling the story of why do you want to work for me, you can say, I don't want to do freelancing anymore. I want full-time employment to work for somebody else. That's a good story to tell. But right now it's like, I was a freelancer. No, wait, I was full-time. No, wait, I'm back to freelancer. No, wait, I'm back to full-time. Wait, I'm back to freelancer. Like, you're kind of back and forth a little bit, but all these jobs are really, really short. And that's going to make people worry about the risk of hiring you. Are you only going to stick around for 2 months? Or are you only going to stick around for 6 months? Like, what's going to keep you here? What are you doing with your career? Where are you taking your career to prove longevity? That if I hire you, you're going to stick around for a while. Like, this next job you get, you need to stay there for like a year, 2 years, 3 years to say, yeah, all of that was preamble. And now I've got this really long job that I've stayed at for a really long time. The fact that you haven't done any work since June 2021 and your GitHub doesn't show me that you've done very much coding since then, though, sends a lot of signals to me as a hiring manager around how are you spending your time? How are you staying sharp on your skills? How are you continuing to learn things? Or are you just sitting around playing video games all day, watching movies on TV? Like, what are you doing with your time? So try to get some project work on here, like recent project work. As you start to research companies where you want to go find a job, find out what kinds of projects are going to be important to those kinds of companies. If you want to stay in the Web3 space, that's fine. There's lots of work in that, and really good paying work in some of that. But lean on some of the background that you've had. Build out more of these types of projects to show you've got current experience in these things. Because a lot of this work is a year old, at least, and you've done nothing recent since then. If you do want to keep a 2-page resume, you need to do something else with this empty column over here. This needs to be filled up with something. In which case, I would probably ditch the 2-column format and just keep it a single column. Put your skills block, put your professional experience. I mean, sum total, you've got, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say 2 months plus another 2 months. So 4 months plus another 6 months. So 10 months and then another 2 months. So you've got 1 year of experience at 4 jobs. So 1 year of experience over the span of August through June 2021. I would more likely coach you like, hey, you know what, just wrap all of this stuff as a freelancer and say, I was a freelancer for a year. These are the kinds of projects that I did at that job. Because you've only got a year of experience, I would want to see these other projects on your resume. Once you start getting like 2-3 years experience, these projects won't matter as much anymore, unless you're building a side project, which is a lot more relevant to a company where you want to change jobs and do something slightly differently. Then you want to make sure that you show a project that's relevant to what I do as a company, and you would make that really prominent at the top of your resume. So it would be skills, really prominent, like relevant project, and then professional work experience. So that lets me know that, oh, like, let's say you want to be a mobile developer. Put that mobile project like really up front. Like, I'm a mobile developer. These are the technologies I use. Here's a project that I built, and here's this other, work experience that I have. So it, right away I see, oh, you're a mobile developer. You've got project work to show, and you've also got other professional experience as well. So a handful of things there that I would do to improve that resume. All right, let me catch up here. Thanks for your patience while I go through those. When I'm recording those clips, I tend not to pay attention to chat. Finance says, how do you handle a large-scale project like your day job project that's not available on GitHub? So if you can make it a private repo, like I presume you're using GitHub or some sort of repository somewhere to track your changes. So I would put it in a private repo and tell GitHub to show the green boxes. But when I actually go look at what you've done, it would, like, I wouldn't be able to see the repo here. Like, if anybody goes and pulls up my GitHub repo, you'd see a ton of green dots, but when you click on it, it wouldn't show you the name of the repo because I put a bunch of work that I commit to on a daily basis, around my Twitch bots and other stuff that I do around interviewing and so on. I put all that stuff in private repos, and then it just shows those green dots on GitHub. So get it in a private repo from there and just tell GitHub to show the green dots. So it shows that you're actively developing something. Now it's not going to show like how many lines of code. It won't show the name of the repo. It won't show any of your commit messages, but it will show that you've got history on there. Is there a way to link two GitHub accounts together? Not really, no. You separated out your business account. I mean, in that case, I would actually link both accounts and say, I've got this business account. I've also got my personal account. And then you can show them like which of the project work is more relevant, just to show that you've been programming across both, if that's even important to them. Some people will never look at your GitHub profile. They'll just be like, okay, you got GitHub, cool. They won't even ever go to it. But some will, and if they see this empty wall of programming, which we also saw in this other person's GitHub profile as well, this is going to worry most people. Now, if Finite Singularity were to go apply for a job, I mean, come on, you're Finite Singularity. People know you code all day, every day. Like anybody that tunes into your stream, they're going to be like, look at all the code this guy built. But if you really want to draw their attention to like, you know, here's the actual GitHub contribution on a business account, then, you know, you can link them over there and they can see the contribution at that point. It's already on a private repo, but it's into your work account. Yeah, I would just do that. Whoa Dude says, before starting my journey into tech as a web developer, I worked as a car dealer. All my previous work experience has no relation to web development. Should I include that in my experience? Yes, absolutely. It's important to show that you have been professionally employed, but you don't need to draw a ton of attention to it. Like you can say, I worked at a car dealership as a car detailer, you know, and give me like one bullet point, like customer interaction and, you know, lots of 5-star ratings or whatever. Like if you can quantify, like provided excellent, you know, customer experience to 15 customers a day, 5 days a week for X number of months. Like you want to quantify like, okay, you've dealt with a lot of people in public, car detailing. Like you don't have to describe. It's like, okay, I bet you were washing and waxing and drying things off and vacuuming and Windexing windows. Like I can guess what you did in that job. And so you don't have to give me, you know, 10 bullet points about every little detail about what you did. Same thing if you're like a grocery clerk or a server at a restaurant. You don't have to go into tons of detail. Just give me at a really high level, this is the impact that I had. That's all I'm going to care about. So just give me like one bullet point of that impact. But yeah, it's important to show that you were in a trusted position, especially if you handled money or dealt with customers. Absolutely put that on the resume, but you don't have to draw a ton of attention to it. Yeah, RC Maniac brings up a good point about forking things. You could fork things over to your private account as well. I subscribe to Finite Singularity on my resume. I'm gonna go add that to my resume. Submitted 500 cookie bits to Ross Codes on Finite Singularity's Twitch channel. Cool. Let's keep going. We got a couple of resumes left here. Let me close off some of these tabs. And then let's go look at the note for this next one. Archive that one. All right. All right, the next resume that we're going to look at here came with a note that says, I am Dervish. I'm looking for an SDE role. Is my resume the right fit for this role? Oops, wrong note. I already looked at that one. Oh, I've lost track of my own notes now on which resume I was going to look at. All right, bear with me while I go look through a handful of resumes here. Skeeter Corgi. Whose email was Skeeter Corgi? I need to go find that one now in my inbox. Or we isn't in that one. This one was a Turing student. All right. Should be easy to find. Nope. I believe I have lost track of some resumes here. All right, I'm going to stop that clip and I'll start a different one here as soon as I figure out whose this is. Okay, here it is. All right, this next resume says I'm a student at the Turing School of Software and Design in the back end. I'm looking for any and all feedback. I think my experience working in mental health and addiction recovery is really valuable, and I've tried to leverage that in this resume while still having major focus on my projects. I've started to like full stack a lot more, and I've been applying to some full stack positions, and they just want some general feedback. So let's dive in. There's a lot of text on this page. If I kind of zoom out, it looks a little bit heavy, but generally it's not too bad. I think we could probably thin out a little bit of what's going on here. Generally, you don't want bullet points to wrap around multiple lines. If possible, like these bullet points are like really great length. This one's a little bit long, but if you can kind of keep bullet points to, 2/3, maybe at most 3/4 of the width of the page or whatever container they're in, that would be ideal. But generally, you don't want bullet points to wrap around, especially if you're only wrapping around by a single word like this. So yeah, let's dive in on this one a little bit for Skeeter Corgi over here. So they've got all their pertinent information up here. They got their LinkedIn, they got their GitHub. They've also got a link to a portfolio site as well. Then they've got a summary on here. Driven, empathetic, backend software developer, dedicated to developing high-quality apps, meeting people where they are at. I thrive solving complex, multifaceted problems through collaboration. Okay, so again, when I'm reading these things over as a hiring manager, I'm reading this from a skeptical point of view of, so what? Like, why do I want you to come do that here? You're dedicated to developing high-quality apps. Okay, meeting people where they're at. Okay, but how does that help me and my company? If you want to put an emphasis on user experience, then I would call that out as, I believe in, empathetic user experience or something like that. Like, call it out in more specific terms about the value that you bring to that company. I thrive solving complex, multifaceted problems through collaboration, persistent learning, strong communication, analytical thinking. So some of these are going to pick up on keywords like communication and learning and things like that as an entry-level developer, which is fine. I don't get a lot of value out of this opening statement, though. So again, this is where I would say, like, either ditch this statement completely and kind of thin this out a little bit vertically, or rewrite this to tell me why you're headed in the same direction as my company. So, some people will say, like, just take all this off and do a cover letter. Some people are like, cover letter, don't really feel like writing a cover letter. Well, then you need to give me some context about where you're headed with your career to show why you're bringing value to my team. Personally, not a fan of like these really wide sort of column formats. I much prefer something that sort of spans horizontally across the page where I get a better sense of what you know, but also to group things up a little more logically, because you've got language and framework. I can't write Python on Rails. I can't write JavaScript on Rails. So you could just say Rails. Or you could just leave Ruby on Rails and take Ruby off as a separate bullet point. But we've got language, framework, we've got testing framework, but then testing methodology, and then a language. Postgres should be capital SQL. I think our spec is a capital S. So you've got language, database technology, library, language. Yay, Postman. You got a tool on here. Postico is another tool for looking at database connections. GitHub, Git. I would probably just combine both of those. Consuming and exposing APIs. So that's kind of like a really high level type of backend development that you do. RESTful development, object-oriented programming, code-based deployment, project management. So I would loop all of or try to list these things in a more logical, like, these are the languages and frameworks that I know. This is the kind of test-driven development that I do. These are some of the tools that I've used, like Git, GitHub, Postgres, Postico, Postman, so on. And then these are just other skills like Agile, project management, things like that. Whether you specifically call out object-oriented programming, service-oriented architecture, again, will depend on whether that company calls out those keywords in their job post. Then I would leave those on there. Otherwise, I would probably take those off. If they're looking for a specific backend developer type of role, they'll probably put something about services or microservice architecture, things like that. Then I would leave SOA on here for sure. All right, software projects. They give me the name. They give me both a front end and back end. So this is a capstone project. Hey, look at this. They give me a link that I can go actually view this on Heroku. To group project, 12-day timeline. All right, cool. Don't always care like how long it took to build a project. I just want to be able to see what you built. Applied conventional, readable, maintainable code according to it. So, I mean, what is the app? You don't even tell me what the app is. Fast food. So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess this is hey, Finite and myself and Juggling Biohazards want to get together for lunch. Where are we going to go eat lunch? Because I have no idea what this project is. You haven't told me what this project is all about. You kind of told me like what you built. You tell me things that you did with it. 100% test coverage, which is great if I care a lot about test coverage. Design a user-friendly and accessible experience with HTML Bootstrap. But did you do that or did your team do that? So this is where you have to be careful, because as a back-end developer, this makes me think that you did some of the front-end development. And so this is where you want to call out very specifically, what was your role on the team? Like if I go look at these repos, am I going to see that you contributed on that front-end repo? We're about to go find out. So let's go look at their, oops. So their GitHub is Alex Grandolph. So let's go look at the front-end repo. Yeah, they actually did contribute to the front-end. Great. So that's cool. So that tells me that they are a full-stack developer. So call yourself a full-stack software developer or software engineer if you want to use that. In some venues, this is actually a protected title. I'd probably get rid of this dot after LinkedIn. GitHub is a capital H. So again, just being careful about those. I've talked about that quite a bit. But what is this project even about? Like the biggest thing that I see from a lot of students, not to call out Turing in a bad way, but one thing that I see from a lot of students is when you give me a link to go experience your application, it's literally a landing page with a login, and you don't tell me anything about it. You don't tell me why I should register or why I should log in. Fast food with a login. It's like you don't even tell me what this is. Search recipes, random recipe. Okay, so it's a recipe app of some kind. You're making me guess here. Like, give me some information about, like, what is this thing? Like, about the team, that's fine, but what about the app? Like, where's the about the app part of this? Like, log in with Google. Why should I even log in? Like, give me something. Give me something. Tell me something about this. Sweater weather, this was one of my favorite projects, so I already know about this one. But again, you're not telling me what the app is. You're not telling me that user can plan a road trip from point A to point B and find out the weather when they get there. You're telling me about how you consumed all these APIs, and all that stuff's fantastic from a back-end development point of view. But again, if you're positioning yourself as a full stack developer, because you've worked on full stack as this first application, this is all entirely back-end, because this was just building an API. Viewing party, consume multiple endpoints of an API. So this was a monolith repo in Rails. Poro is something to be careful about because that's a Ruby specific term. It's a plain old Ruby object. But some people don't know what a Poro is. So they're going to look at that and go, I don't know what a Poro is. But again, most people are only reading the first 5 or 6 words of a bullet point anyway. They're not reading these really long statements. From an experience point of view, the person that sent in this resume said, like, I wanted to leave this stuff on here on purpose. And I think that that's fine if this is important to me and my company. Like, if you're going to go work for, like, if I'm a mental health software company, then yeah, tell me all about how you worked in this, because that lends relevance to why you're applying for a job at my company. If my company doesn't do anything about mental health, then you don't need to give me this much detail here. I would rather see maybe a 4th project instead. Ace on the facts, warehouse manager, managed up to 15 sales associates, collaborated with upper management. So you're giving me some good information about what you did and some of the impact that you had. I would probably find ways to shorten these a little bit. But overall, like, this is fine. Now, most of these dates, you're giving me a 3-letter month, but April you spell out. So be consistent about that sort of thing. Otherwise, education seems fine. I would probably put education above your experience, though, because again, from a hiring manager perspective, it's like, what have you done? How have you done it? And then where did you learn it? Where I've got to go all the way down to the bottom to see like how you actually learned all these, web development superpowers. So I like that you're giving me a repository. If I don't know what Heroku is, I don't know why I want to click on it. So I would probably change that link to like experience the app or something like that, or see it live or something like that. Like make it a stronger call to action. But again, the projects that you present on the resume are going to be more relevant to one particular company than another. So make sure that you're picking the most relevant things. If I'm hiring for an API developer, you're probably going to want that API project first, and then your capstone, where you can still show me that you did some API development, but you also did some front end work. And then this other one was also like a full stack application as well. But if I'm looking for an API developer, then show me this as your first project. Also, you're calling out a lot of skills here that you don't necessarily call out in here. Like, I know that you use Postman for sweater weather because I designed, that part of that project. But you don't specifically call out Postman here. So being able to call out more of the tech stack of like what you use to build the thing would be important. So yeah, from a layout point of view, again, I would try to shorten some of these so that these dates sort of stay isolated in kind of a visual column. Not that it's like an actual column, but I would try to shorten some of these statements. Like, this is a pretty long sentence here, for example. And again, if my company doesn't do anything about mental health, like, some of these bullet points don't matter. Like, yeah, you collaborated through effective written and verbal communication and so on. And data security and HIPAA, regulations and all that kind of stuff would be really important to call out here. But you want to make sure that what you're presenting on the resume is relevant to the companies where you're applying. Otherwise, they're just going to skim over and go, okay. Like, it's good to read, but how does that help me in my company? That's really what's going through their mind. When they're looking at your resume, they're like, but why should I hire you? Like, for this particular role, like, why does that matter to me and my company? All right, let me catch up. Juggling, good to see you in chat as well. Noob Coder, good to see you too. I have a quick interview with Versal today. Cool. Awesome. Good luck with that for developer advocate role, kind of an introductory call. Any advice? Good luck. As far as advice goes, talk to them about the impact that you have around, community code content. Like, what kind of content have you built? What do you want to be doing in DevRel? What does DevRel even mean to you? Again, just showing the value that you can bring to their team. That's really what they're looking for in those interviews, is a very quick take on, this is the immediate impact I can have. This is how I'm continuing to learn and grow. So yeah, I would say focus on, what's relevant to them and their company as far as what they sort of call out in their job post, and really speak to what they're calling out. You could also, one thing that I like to do on when I was doing my job hunt was asking people, what do you expect, or what do you hope to find in your next coworker? Like, what skills do you hope that the next person on the team brings to the team? And then I would write down those notes, and then I would bring that up in the next interview of, like, how can I sort of spin that? Like, finite singularity, when I asked finite singularity, like, what do you expect in your next coworker? And they said, well, I'm really bad at documentation, so I hope the next person that comes to the team is really good at documentation. Well, in that interview, I would start talking about, well, here's some blog posts that I've written, here's how I've improved some documentation. Then I would bring that up in the next interview as well, about like, hey, I hear you're looking for someone on the team that's going to be really good at documentation, or the documentation is going to be a strong point of someone on the team. So just re-emphasize, like, this is a skill that I bring to the team, and just, really sell them on, this is what I'm bringing if you hire me. Let's see. When it comes to links on profile, should it be fully written out or a hyperlink is fine? I think having just a link of like GitHub or LinkedIn, I think is okay. Most people now are going to get like a digital copy of your resume. It's going to be very rare that they actually get a printed copy of your resume anymore. If that's the case, you know, hopefully they've been given a digital copy or they'll know to ask for a digital copy at that point. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Thanks for the follow to Newells. Niles. Not sure how you pronounce your name. I'll just call you Nye for now. Bill Nye the Science Guy, maybe. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate you dropping by. Let's see what else we got in here. If there are longer URLs, then use a URL shortener. Yeah. Yeah, Heroku is also going away, so I think a lot of these projects and resumes are going to have to change over time for sure. Cool. Oh, you're going to work on Next.js, their main product. Awesome. That sounds great. So yeah, I mean, definitely show like what have you done with Next.js and you know, what can you sort of advocate about that? Like, have you worked in the community? Have you thought about like anything that could get improved, or you know, talk about what you like and what you don't like about the library, and you know, what kinds of things have you built with it? What have you seen other people build? How have you helped them? Have you sat in on other people doing like live streams using Next.js and like kind of chime in a little bit? Like, how are you active in that community already? How are you using the tool? And then like any projects that you can put on the resume of like, this is how I've actually used Next.js, or how I'm currently using Next.js. Those kinds of things will really stand out. All right, got one more resume to get through, and then we'll see what else we can get into as far as other questions go. All right. The last resume that we're going to go through was submitted by someone who basically said, this resume is about 2 years old. I don't have my current job on there, but I'm not even looking for work. You just asked for resumes to do resume reviews on the stream. So I appreciate this person dropping this one in. Let's go through it a little bit. So engineer, software quality 3, about me, enthusiastic about the creativity and innovation of development. All right. So pretty strong opening statement here. Somewhere in West Virginia, give us a LinkedIn profile. This takes up a lot of space though. So I would, yeah. And then page 2 is also kind of using, or like it's reserving that space for something else. So I'd probably change that up. I would like to see the skills block up on page 1 as well. Seeking a development role where I can bring my excellent troubleshooting skills, diligence, and experience to support a client product. So one thing that I generally say on a resume is there shouldn't be an ask on your resume. The resume is, this is what I bring, not this is what I want. You want them to read this over as far as like, oh, cool, Ian can come do that here. Not, oh, this is what Ian wants from the company. And so I would be careful about wording that in a way that talks about what you bring to their team. You know, like if you know that these are qualities that their team cares about as you do your networking and your outreach, and you talk to people at that company and you find out maybe their company values or something like that. Talk about their company values on your resume. These are qualities that I bring to a team. And they're like, hey, those happen to be our company qualities. Again, it shows relevance. It shows that you've done some homework and done some research into who they are and what they do and so on. All those kinds of things will really stand out. Getting into experience from here. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. So education and training, associates in computer science, all this stuff is fine. It's always a little weird to me to see like these fonts where they like drop the number down a little bit as opposed to having everything sort of on the same plane, but that's fine. It's the font choice. 2 years of classes. So this is a good way of saying like I started this program, but I didn't finish. You can say this is how much of it I took, or I finished so many course credits or something like that. I think that's fine. So they're immediately jumping in with their professional experience. But if I'm looking for, but do they know this particular technology? I got to go all the way down here to the bottom to see like, oh yeah, they've actually done a particular kind of technology. So I'd be careful about that. It says that they've done SQL for 15 years, but the sum total of their actual database experience only adds up to 8 years. So what's missing on here? Did you use some other kind of database that you just didn't list? Or are you pulling my leg that you actually did 15 years of SQL? Or were you writing SQL for somebody else and you didn't actually work on the database? Like maybe you actually did more on the administration side and like building out the tables and schemas and things like that on these databases for this amount of time, but you actually wrote SQL, for these other databases. But given the difference between Oracle and Sybase and MySQL, the actual SQL syntax that you write would be different enough that I would be curious, like, where did the other 7 years of SQL experience come from? Web development, 15 plus years, NUnit, 10 plus years. Developing in C# and .NET with Visual Studio for 15 plus years. Has it really been around that long? Agile for 10. Customer service help desk for 6, and so on. Okay, so generally this stuff is fine. I would always take aspiring off of here. Aspiring author, I mean, if you're already writing a book, then that's one thing. Like currently writing a book about such and such technology or something. But to say like, oh yeah, someday I want to write a book. Like, yeah, someday I'd love to learn how to sail a boat. Like, why does that matter to me and my company? Like, if my company is like, oh yeah, we'd love to give people time to like go explore things like writing a book, then that could stand out if you know that that's an attribute that they really care about and that they really respect. Amateur woodworker, if our company doesn't do anything about woodworking, this has no value at all. So I probably wouldn't put this kind of stuff on a resume. Some people are a little bit divided on that. Like, they think, well, we want to know you're a well-rounded person, that you've got skills outside of technology and stuff like that. And I think that that's got merit to it. But I think that you can also end up just like distracting a little bit from, but you call yourself a programmer, but like how much time are you actually spending, doing these other things and so on and so on. And then, yeah, from an overall layout point of view, you got this big empty block here where up on the first page, you've got your contact info. So I might move this contact info under your name and just get rid of this gray block here completely. Leave the education and so on in that column if you want, but it does feel a little bit disjointed. Either that or put the skills up in this block or something. Like find a way to break out those skills into like hard skills and soft skills or something. Like use the difference in the gray and the white backgrounds or something like that, to kind of offset that a little bit. When it comes to the work experience that you're laying out here, you're explaining what you did and the technologies that you did, but you don't really give me a sense of this is the impact that this had. Like, telling me what you did is good. Telling me why it mattered to that company is better. Because again, you kind of want to tease out the whole, like, I could come do that for you. You want me to think that while I'm reading through your resume of like, oh, cool, Ian could come do that here too. Like we talked on another resume about like, I increased efficiency by 10%. It's like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about like how you did that 10%. But like, that kind of stuff really stands out on a resume. If you can quantify, like, I wrote 500 unit tests and it decreased our production bug count by 326 bugs and increased our speed our application speed by 22% or something like that. And if you're curious, like how to get those types of benchmarks, you can run benchmarking tools and profiler tools and things like that to actually find out like how much you're speeding things up, or how are you identifying that this was slow and that it even needed to be improved and sped up. Like, how are you doing that? Again, those would be interesting things to dive into, especially for someone that's got a pretty big history in technology. I would want to hear a little bit more about the impact that you had and not just what you did at these jobs. Now they mentioned that they don't have their current workplace on here, and so their work experience at this job ended July 2020, which is fine. So yeah, seeing the technologies, and they're kind of calling them out in bold. So again, you're kind of drawing my eye to those things. So I would skim through this and go, okay, C#, Agile, more C#, SQL, JavaScript. Okay, let's keep going down here. I see ASP.NET. Okay, SQL again, you know, XML. Like, you're kind of drawing my eye to these things that you're writing in bold so I can quickly see, like, oh, you've actually been doing C# for a long time, like all the way back to 2010. So mentally, I'm kind of adding up like, okay, it's about 12 years of professional experience in C#. Here, though, you're telling me you've done C# for 15 years. That doesn't add up. If you've been doing C# since January 2010, we're most of the way through 2022. So let's give you the benefit of the doubt and say all of 2010, all the way through all of 2022, that's 13 years. That's not 15 plus years. So where does that extra time come from? So just making sure that, you know, those kinds of things add up. Like, you've been doing SQL for 15 years, but the database experience that you list is only 8 years. Doesn't add up. It's not a huge flag, but for some, they're like, oh, this is weird. That might put you on a maybe pile. You know, if you've got other skills on here that my company highly desires, then we'll probably overlook it, but it may come up in the interview of like, hey, you said that you've been doing this for 15 years. I only count, you know, 12, maybe 13 years. Like, where else were you doing some of this work? Or, you know, you said 15 years of SQL, but only 8 years of actual database hands-on work. Like, where did you do that other 7 years of SQL? Were you doing some other like data analysis work or something like that? They may have other questions just to follow up on it. Overall, though, the layout is pretty good. 10-year job history continued. So 10-year job history, but again, you're telling me you've got way more experience than that, than the job. So I would be careful that if you're including your education as professional experience, I would say, nah, that doesn't count as professional experience. To me, as a hiring manager, professional experience is something you got paid for and not something that you went to a class for. If you worked on a project and somebody paid you for that project, or you did, you know, you were employed full time and you got paid for that work, that is professional experience to me. And so I would be careful of like going through and actually calling out like where you actually did some of this work. Because you are giving me 10 years, like to July 2020 from January 2010, like that was a 10-year span, but it doesn't add up with some of the stuff that you're telling me down here. So I would find a way of like, where did you get that extra 5 years of .NET or extra 7 years of SQL and so on? Alrighty, .NET has been around as long as Java, really? Okay. Guess that answers my earlier question of wall of text with bolded items. Yeah, so like throwing a little bit of bold is like really going to draw their attention around the page. And because like I said, when we're reading through these things, we're skimming in a hurry going, should I call this person yes or no? I'm looking for a reason to say no. And if you can kind of draw my attention through the page and go, you know, I've done these things, I've done this thing. It's like, okay, you've done C# here, you've done C# here, you've done C# here. I'm kind of going through and like mentally making a check of like when you did the C#. It's like, okay, clearly you've done C# at a whole bunch of these jobs. You've been at these jobs. Like this job was, you know, almost 4 years. This job was 2 years. Like you stick around at these companies. This one's 3 years. This one was a year and a half. Like, that's great. It shows that if I hire you, you're going to stick around for a minute. Like that's also something that means a lot to employers too. But yeah, in this case, they're really drawing our attention to certain parts of the page by using a little bit of bold. So I've said on a previous stream, you kind of want to use bold like hot sauce. Like you want to like sprinkle it on to have impact. You don't want to just dump hot sauce on everything. It kind of ruins the point of hot sauce. Alrighty. Arsemaniac, just repeating, are you sure that I've been ending the clips? If not, starting the new clip will automatically end the old one. So I've already got that in there. But yeah, it could be that some of my commands are not working. So, oh, you know what? I was always hitting start because I moved a button. All right, well, let me go back and re-end that one. So yeah, it's fine. I appreciate it. But these are all just resume reviews, so I've already got all those timestamps in, except for the first one. I forgot to timestamp that first one. But I got to go back and clip all those in anyway. So yeah, thank you. I'd moved some of the buttons on my Stream Deck, but I got to go back and like fix a bunch of stuff about Stream Deck anyway, because it's not controlling OBS properly since I upgraded OBS. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the vigilance on that. Because yeah, I used to have like on that row it was like start and end, and then I had something else, and I made two different start buttons. One that actually goes and grabs the chat history, and another one that waits for me to actually type in or paste in, like this is the question from anonymous chat or whatever that I'm answering. All right, we've been going for 2 hours. Appreciate everybody sticking around. If you got other questions about tech industry stuff, resumes, things like that, feel free to drop that in chat. Let's see what else we got going on. Did change up the music was phasing in a weird way in my headphones. It was throwing me off a little bit. Let's see. I don't think I had any other resumes come in while we were streaming, so that was it for resumes. M. Kilmer, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. What do I think about overemployed? Give me some more context on what you mean, M. Kilmer, about what do I think about overemployed? Like, are you talking about like, is that a service of some kind, or are you talking about like, you know, having more than one job? Like, give me some more context about what you mean by overemployed. I'm happy to dive in on questions, but I need a little more information on that one. There is an overemployed.com work 2 remote jobs. Yeah, that's a whole thing for sure. Thanks for the follow too. Appreciate it. Yeah, if you're talking about like getting full-time jobs, like what do I think about people working 2 full-time jobs, dealing with more than one job? Yeah, okay. Let's dive in on this one for sure. So we had a question come in on chat asking, what do I think about working 2 full-time jobs, or a site, it's called overemployed.com, where they're encouraging people like, here's how to juggle 2 full-time jobs. I think it's a dangerous thing to do. I've actually heard stories where one company finds out and they fire you, you know, and now you're down to 1 job. I've heard where it can be highly successful for some people, though, that they work those jobs and they are effective enough, and they get like a full week worth of work done in 20 or 30 hours, and so they've got free time to go take on a second job. I would say you do need to be a little bit careful about it, and I think at a minimum you should be transparent about it with your employers. Some benefits packages also won't, you may run into conflicts with health benefits. You know, if you're in the United States, for example, if you get health benefits from both employers, there may be some concerns or questions about overlap of benefits and which benefit provider should pay for a particular type of healthcare if you've got multiple benefits packages and so on, and how that plays in. Or do you tell one employer like, hey, I don't need benefits because I get them from, you know, my partner or something like that, which is fine. But I think at the end of the day, like, companies hire you and they want full-time effort out of you. They want your undivided attention. They want to know that you're giving them 100% of that work week that they expect from you, and what you are expected to do. Now, if you are able and willing to juggle multiple jobs to where you're working 60 to 80 hours a week, and that's a lifestyle that you're okay putting in, then I think it's fine. It would be kind of interesting to know how you would play that out on LinkedIn, or how that might play out in a GitHub profile or something like that, where if people are looking at your GitHub profile, do they see, you know, multiple conflicting types of repos or the kinds of things that you're working on? Like if I were to take on 2 different roles as a developer relations advocate, you know, if I live stream for Postman and then the next day I live stream and I'm like, hey, it's Ian, I work at GitHub or something, and my coworkers from Postman log in, they're like, you work at GitHub? What the heck? You know, you need to be careful about that, because both companies could find out and you could get fired from both jobs. And now you have 0 jobs instead of 2 jobs. So I think you do need to be careful about it. Do you need to be sneaky about it? I think is maybe a better question. Is there anything inherently or like morally wrong with it? again, it really comes down to the contract that you're agreeing to, the employment contract that you're agreeing to. If they expect 40 hours a week of effort out of you and you're able to juggle multiple jobs at 40 hours and you're proving that you can get your job done and you're not slacking on anything, okay. But I would probably want to be transparent with them and just say, hey, by the way, like I'm also working, I would say I'm working part-time for some other company as well. It's not a conflict of interest, because that's a big thing too, of like, if you invent something, who owns it? Like if I say like, hey, we own anything that you invent between, you know, your 9 to 5 job, but for me, you work say 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then the other job from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. or something like that. Like who owns that work if you invent something? Like if you invent something between 9 and 5 and I expect that, you know, I claim ownership on that as my company, but you're also working for RC Maniac's company, who gets to claim ownership of what you invent? If you come up with something, or if you come up with something that's patentable, who owns that patent? Who owns that IP? Those would be legal consequences that could get you into trouble, and end up having companies fighting and things like that. So one thing I would say is make sure that if you're going to go down that road, make sure that they are two jobs which have absolutely zero interest in what one another does. Like don't go do two of the same kind of, like I'm going to go work for Netflix and Hulu, or I'm going to go be a programmer for both Uber and Lyft. Like those will get you into serious legal ramifications. Yeah, I think you need to be really, really careful about it. For me as a hiring manager, I mean, if I found out that my staff were doing that, I would probably sit down and say, you need to choose. Like, yes, maybe you're getting your work done, but at the same time, I want to know that you're dedicated to me. If there's a bug in my software, that I can make sure that you can call in, and or that I can call you after hours, and that you're going to give me that attention and not say, well, sorry, I can't work on that because it's after hours. If there's some expectation that you're on call as part of rotation on a team or something like that can come up as a developer. And if I've got you on call and you're working some other job and I can't get a hold of you, or you're not answering that work cell phone because you're working for some other company, or some other company wants you to travel and you don't have time off with my company and I expect you in a certain time zone and you're not in that time zone, like it can start to raise some serious conflicts. So I would say be transparent about it and say, I'm working part-time. This other company wants to hire me part-time. I'm not, you know, it's not going to conflict. If I develop anything within these hours, like it belongs to you, kind of thing. Now, some states like California is really careful about, if you develop something on your own time, it belongs to you and not the company that you work for. But again, it comes down to what that employment agreement says. Like if you're sort of on the clock from my company and you develop something, we claim ownership of that library or tool or whatever it is that you build, but the other company that you work for may also want to claim ownership of that thing. So you have to be really careful about that kind of stuff. I see many CEOs that have more than one company or job. So yes, but from that perspective, it's a little bit different once you start getting into executive leadership, because that doesn't take up 40 hours a week of their time. But when you're like lower level, like in the ranks, they expect that if you're writing code, you're writing that code for, I mean, they want 40 hours, but none of us actually code for 40 hours. You might code for 25 to 30 hours, but they want to make sure that you're giving them your undivided attention. That if that other job calls and the phone rings, like, how are you dividing up your time? How are you making sure that you're being fair and equitable to both companies, that you're giving the proper due diligence on the amount of work that you do? Also, that you're not sharing code in between, like, oh, well, I made this really cool function for this other company. Let me pull it over into this code base. It's like that other company owns that code. You can't do that. Same kind of question gets raised with using things like Google Copilot. Like if I have Google Copilot write some code, does my company own that code? Or like, where did Google Copilot actually get that code from? How did it develop that code using AI and machine learning? Like, where did it actually go sample? Did it sample out of something that's like an open source license? And now our expectation is we have to go open source our code because of where it got its code from. Like, it can start to raise a lot of concerns from the legality point of view. If you're a developer, you don't need to work 8 hours a day. I mean, maybe not, but that's my expectation. If I'm your hiring manager, I'm expecting that you're giving me 8 hours a day. Maybe you're not coding that 8 hours a day, but I expect that you're still around, that you're working on what we need you to build for that 8 hours, that you're giving me that full-time effort. If you're working for me full-time to where I'm paying you benefits and so on, then you should be giving me full-time effort, maybe not just in coding, but like collaboration, documentation, other aspects of your job should be filling up 40 hours of your week. And if you're splitting that time with some other company, it can start to raise moral concerns. And I think to me, I would want to be transparent about it and say, this is how I'm spending my time. Some people won't agree. And again, this is just my perspective. But as a hiring manager, it would raise a concern for me if I knew somebody on my team was doing that. I would sit down with them and say, I strongly encourage you to pick one. And if that other job excites you more than this one, I would rather you go work full time for that job than to split time and have me worry about whether you're actually, giving me the proper attention that I expect you're giving to this job. If I know that your attention is divided on something else, it's the same thing. Like as a hiring manager, like there's kind of this stigma that the business doesn't care about you as a person, but I do as a manager. I care that you're healthy and that, I can take care of distractions and things like that. That's why companies have like, bring in your laundry or bring in your dry cleaning, or, we'll take care of like child care, during the daytime or whatever. Like bring your kid to work. We've got a daycare next door and we'll just take care of daycare and stuff like that, because we want you to not feel distracted. We want to know that we can get you kind of zoned in and working on what we want you to work on. Not every company feels that same way. Like I guarantee you there are companies out there that don't give a rip about what actually goes on in your personal life, but some do. So again, for me and my perspective, I would be concerned about that from a managerial point of view. Not everybody feels the same. It's just my opinion, my take on it. Just reading through chat and see what else is going on here. Sorry, not Google Copilot, GitHub Copilot. Thank you. In the US, it's at will employment. You can see bosses where they go, why aren't you at your desk working? I expect you to be working. They can fire you for that reason. Yeah, I mean, they can fire you for any reason, no reason, with cause, without cause. Like they can just say, today's your last day. Thanks. Send us back your laptop. And they don't even have to give you a reason. They can just let you go for no reason at all. The world has changed. Yep. Works does have to be more flexible. I agree with that. I think developers have this power to be flexible. Yeah, but you are signing a contract, so there is flexibility, but you are also held legally responsible to the employment agreement that you are signing, saying that you are providing a certain amount of attention to the job. And they may want an expectation on like anything you develop after hours. We need to, write a disclaimer saying, no, we don't claim ownership of this particular project. Like I've done that at several jobs, even though I'm in Colorado, and Colorado's pretty lenient about like you're able to develop things on your own time. California actually has a law that if you develop something outside of typical 9 to 5 hours that doesn't conflict with what your employer does, that you own the copyright to what you build and what you develop. Here in Colorado, it's a bit of a gray area. And so the last several of my jobs, I've actually had to write down, these are all the side projects I've got going on. These are all the little things and all the automation and stuff. Like this is all stuff that I've written that I own the copyright to. And the company goes through and goes, okay, check. We disclaim ownership of any of these things. And if you continue to work on those things, that's fine. But if I develop something that's API related around some sort of testing or some sort of API automation or something like that, Postman's going to be like, we own that because it's relevant to what they do as a company. And so as a software developer, I think you have to be pretty careful about how you divide that time and how and when you're developing things. If you're doing it for multiple companies at the same time, I think you need to be very careful about those work agreements. At a minimum, I would say go talk to a lawyer about it. Take them both of those job agreements and say, legally, what am I allowed to do as far as what I work on when I work, who owns what, according to the jurisdiction of where I live and where these companies are based and things like that. Like, what could they claim ownership to, so that you have a very clear delineation of, I'm only ever going to use this laptop for this company. I'm only ever going to use this laptop for that company. And I've got my own personal system where I don't do like any work for anybody, and none of my personal stuff is on any of those work laptops. Like, then you might have a better delineation of that. But I would say talk to a lawyer about it. I'm not a lawyer, but as a hiring manager, I would be concerned if I found out that someone on my team was doing that. Iggy Smells, good to see you in chat. I'm just going to hydrate here for a second. Doing a lot of dev work and documentation. I work on a team adjacent to the software engineering team. I've had open conversations about transitioning to that team with my manager and possible new manager, but I'm finding it hard to propose that switch to that team and create a headcount. What kinds of metrics and information would you want as my manager if I wanted to switch teams? Note that about 70% of my work could be dev work, but can't invest time in it yet. Let me think on that one for a minute. So you're currently in a role where you're not expected to do development. I just want to make sure that I've got the context of this right before I try to answer it. So you're in a role where you're doing dev work, but it's not an expectation of your role. And so you want to go get a role where you are doing like full-time software development. You're already doing development work and documentation, but it's not part of your responsibility. Like, are you automating things, or is it just stuff on the side that you're doing? Like, are you doing projects on the side in order to build up that skill? Like, give me a little more context around, like, you know, are you in like a customer support kind of role and you want to get into a software developer kind of role? Like, can you give me a little more context there? I'm finding it hard to propose the switch to that other team to create a position for you. What kind of metrics and information would I want in order to switch teams? So if I were the other manager on that other team, what would sell me on bringing me on your team? So you're automating and creating services for internal teams. I'm an IC3 who contributes to productivity tools for our teams. Okay. So, but that software development is not part of your role, but you're doing that automation anyway. Okay. Let me start a clip and we'll dive in on this one. So we had a question come in on chat from Eggy Smalls here asking, I'm doing a lot of dev work, and through some conversation here, we're seeing that they're working on some automation, creating services for internal teams. They are a video encoding technician, but they're working on development to like automate some of that process. They want to be a full-time developer, and so they want to approach a manager on another team to say, hey, I want to come be on your software team full-time. And they're asking advice like, what kind of metrics, what kind of information would I want as that other manager to convince me to make a position, because there isn't currently a position open for that team. Over the past 5 years, I've been slowly creating these business critical apps and services. Okay, cool. Appreciate the context on that. As that other manager, I want to know the value that you can bring to the team. The type of software that you've been building may not be as relevant to my team as it is on the team that you're currently on. Like, building out that automation and building out the tooling and so on that's making your team highly productive is fantastic. That might not be the kind of software that I'm building on that other team. And so while it's good that I can see that you're doing software development, if it's not immediately relevant to what I need on my team, it's going to be a lot harder to convince me to bring you on my team, make headcount for you on my team, take money out of my budget to have you come on my team if you're not working on the kind of software that my team makes. So in the current role that you're in, you're working on automation, you're doing video encoding, and you're automating that, you're making your team more productive. But let's say my software team is in billing and we work on billing software and it's totally unrelated. I would want to see that you've worked on some kind of project that's more relevant to what my team actually does. That would be the first step, to show that you can work on the kind of software that is more relevant to what my team does. If there are aspects of the kind of work that you've been doing with this automation and the programming that you've been doing on your current team that is relevant, then you need to sit down and say, this is what I've done that is relevant to your team, and ask them, what would you like me to build? What would you like me to continue to learn and grow on the side? Maybe I can do some side projects, or maybe split my time like 80-20. Like I'll work in this other role 4 days a week and I come work on your team 1 day a week just to learn what it is that your team does, and work that out with your current manager too. Like you want to make sure everybody's okay with this arrangement, and just say, maybe shadow them for half a day every week. So that's like 10% of your time. So if you factor in 5 days a week, 2 half days, that's 10 half days over that week. Take one of those half days and say, I'm going to go shadow someone on that other team for that half day, learn about what it is they do. So it's not just about building the relationship. So following up on what you're saying in chat, what would they benefit from me building, not only to build a relationship, but to demonstrate that skill? That's exactly what I want to know as the manager on that other team, is what value are you bringing to my team? If you can't show me the value of, oh yeah, you can totally come and do the work that anyone else on my team can do, then you're going to have a harder time convincing me to free up money out of my budget to hire you on my team, because I don't know that you can do that job. So sitting down with them and finding out, or sitting down with someone on that other team and say, what kind of projects do you do on a regular basis? Like if your team had a job opening, what kind of projects, what kind of programming could I do that would make me a really good candidate to apply for that job? If I was outside the company and I was coming in. On one hand, because you're already in the company, it is your current manager's responsibility to find opportunities to let you explore what it is you want to be doing. Not every manager is going to be really great at that. Some managers are going to be really sort of tight-fisted over, like, you're on my team, I'm not letting you go. If you're really good on that team. Now, you've been on that team for 5 years, they might have a hard time letting you go work on that other team because you've been developing all these other processes that have made the team really productive. They may not want you to leave that team. So I think you might have a harder time convincing your current manager to let you leave than to convince the other manager to let you come on their team. But that's a separate conversation. I think the first conversation is finding out what that other team actually needs as far as skills and experience levels and things like that. And talk to other people on that team and say, what other projects could I be building, so that I can immediately turn around to that other manager and say, okay, I talked to these 2 or 3 other people on the team, and they said I should go learn the following programming languages, work on the following frameworks. This is the kind of projects that they said that they're involved in. So I've made little demo applications and demo projects similar to what your team currently does, because I really want to come work on your team. Now I can bring that value to the team and I can hit the ground running a little bit. Maybe not running, but you at least understand kind of the core concepts of what that team even does. Again, for anybody applying for any kind of job, as a hiring manager, I want to know, what immediate value are you bringing to me and my team? How are you going to make my team better? If you're coming on my team and you're just going to be a drain on my team because we got to train you on everything, we got to teach you everything, we got to hold your hand on everything, I'm a lot less likely to want to hire you. In this case, there isn't even an open head count for this role. You're trying to convince this manager that that they should make this role for you. And so the first thing that I would spin is, I really like the company. I'm all in on this company. I've been here for 5 years. I want to be here 5 years more or longer. I love what I do. This is where I want to be from a company perspective. And so you don't have to teach me why this kind of programming is important. Like, I understand how your role fits in the puzzle piece of the whole overall picture of what we do as a business. I understand how all that plays together. I understand the relevance of it and why all these different pieces are important. I also know that if your software interfaces with my other software, like, I've got a good understanding of like multiple systems around like all the architecture of what we build as a company. And so it's really then, okay, how can I show the sort of hands-on demonstration of what that team needs you to do. And so find out from them, like, what kind of technologies, what languages, frameworks. Start with small things. Figure out like smaller applications that you can go build. Go start building those things out. Start building up that experience. Ask other people on that team, like, hey, you know, I'm trying to build something similar to that checkout process. Like, assuming it's like a billing team, just say, hey, I made like this little shopping cart app. I know it's not exactly what your team does, but I'm trying to learn kind of the basics and those fundamentals. Could you give me a code review and let me know what you think? You know, put it on a GitHub repo, give them access to it, or make it public or whatever. If it's not, you know, exposing anything, you know, that's going to get you in trouble with the company. But ask them for a code review. Ask them for an honest assessment of like, what do you think about the code? Am I ready? What can I improve? How can I improve it? What can I do better? And get their take on it, get their feedback on it. I think that will help you grow in a lot of ways. Continue to develop. Like, this isn't going to be an overnight thing. This is going to take months. Like, it's going to take a while to kind of go through. They followed up in chat and said, I'll make a note of the value statement. And I'm currently working on a mentorship with a staff engineer, and they're already giving me this onboarding experience. That's great. That's fantastic. That's exactly what you need to do. And so get information from them about what should I be learning, where should I be growing, what kinds of applications should I be building. And once you got all of that under your belt, then go to that other manager and say, hey, I've been working with this other staff engineer. They've been coaching me on this stuff. These are applications that I've built. They've been giving me code reviews. Here's a demonstration of what I'm capable of. They're going to be a lot more likely to be open to that conversation. It doesn't mean they're going to be like, oh, okay, fine, you know, but they might. But at the very least, they could say, okay, I can see that you can demonstrate all that skill. We could use you on the team. We really don't have a position right now, but maybe we can do that, you know, 80-20 split where you come work for us one day a week or something like that, or like figure out what that is, or figure out how you can transition off your current team onto that other team. And maybe it starts with a 4-1 split where you stay on your team Monday through Thursday and you go work on their team on Friday. And then a month later, you do Monday through Wednesday on your team and you do Thursday, Friday on their team, and you gradually transition over. And so that team gets to work with you. They get to interact with you. They get to see that skill, you know, or just say like, hey, I've got this, you know, now that I've got this skill, I can demonstrate it. Can I come shadow the team for like half a day every week just to get used to working on that team and whatever. And then as that other team then says like, hey, I really like working with Ian, like Ian's got like some pretty good ideas and Ian was able to do this and Ian was able to contribute this or that. Now they're also trying to convince that manager to bring you on the team as well. So I would start with that. But it's not going to be a fast process. It's not going to happen like next week or next month. It could take several months to do, but I think it'll be worth it for you. So yeah, I would start with the communication, start by talking to your manager and say like, you know, I really want to go to this other team. I want to like gradually go learn what I need to do over there and then figure out some sort of transition plan. Maybe see if your manager can talk to that other manager too and help them understand the impact that you've had on their team. Have that manager vouch for you to that other manager and say, yeah, Ian on this team was able to like automate all this stuff, you know, figure this other stuff out. It made our team more productive. Like have them vouch for you to that other manager. That might help too. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to demonstrate that you could do the job that anyone else on their team can do. And so you're still going to have to go learn those skills. So yeah, I think keep working with that staff engineer, ask them for code reviews, improve at that, and then gradually demonstrate to that other manager that, you know, this is really what I want. Look at this effort that I've been putting in over months. Like this is really what I want to be doing. At the end of all that, if they really say no, like we can't bring you on the team, there's no opening, there's no foreseeable opening on the team, well, guess what? You've also built up a bunch of other skill. You could just go get another job and maybe make more money at the same time. Like just say, okay, cool. This is really what I want to do. I really want to be a full-time software developer. So I'm going to go chase that other job instead. And now you've been working up, you know, all that other skill. You've got other projects that you've been building. You're able to now demonstrate and prove that value to any other manager. So now you can go interview for any other job. This was clipped, yeah. So I'll end the clip here in a minute. So yeah, I would continue doing what you're doing with the staff engineer. and continue to kind of build up those side projects. And then one way or another, you've got side projects and you've got new skills. So even if that other manager is really hard-nosed on like, no, I really am not going to bring you on my team, at that point, you need to make the decision of, do you really want to stay at the company or do you want to find something else? Because now you've got demonstrable skill that you can take to any other company. Cool. Yeah, I'll get that clip published up on YouTube in a little bit. It'll also go out on the podcast audio at some point too. Awesome deal. All right. I think I can start to wrap up. We've been going for a little over 2.5 hours. Let's see who else is streaming tonight. Chrissy Codes is online. Strager's online. Well, we rated out to Chrissy last time, so I think we'll find somebody else. Oh, Tiffany's still streaming, so I think we'll go right over to Tiffany. So Tiffany's another engineering manager. Tiffany was also doing resume reviews and also loves doing like Q&A, ask me anything. So Eggy, I would say like go ask Tiffany this exact same question. Give Tiffany the same sort of background, get her take as well. I think it's important that you hear a lot of perspectives and a lot of opinions and stuff like that. So let's go right over to Tiffany's channel, and any other questions that you have, I mean, absolutely drop them over there as well. So let me get that raid set up. And so this Sunday we have Praveen on the stream. Next Thursday is going to be Finance Singularity. We're going to have Mark on here for some good conversation. So go make some noise in Tiffany's channel. Be kind and supportive over there. She's really fantastic. I've had her on the stream a couple of months ago. You already follow her too? Yeah, awesome. Yeah, she's fantastic. I had her on the stream and we were kind of like doing resume reviews together as engineering managers. Like, what does she look for? What do I look for? So, well, let's go make some noise over there, and we'll catch you all on Sunday. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll see you next time.